Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back 7 days after a barnstorming first race of the season, first race of this brand new chapter here at the Ventauri Pro Series. We move from Australia down under to Shanghai in China for the second race of the inaugural Ventauri Pro Series. Very different type of circuit, very different challenge the drivers are going to have to experience, and we have got some very interesting names lining up on the grid for this week's action, as we do in Commentary Corner once again, because infiltrating like the virus that we are, it is Tom Squared once more, myself, Tom Wilkinson, and Tom Knight alongside me.
Hello, welcome. It's good to be back. It's always good to be back for this. It was so close last week on Australia. I think China's going to give our drivers a slightly unique challenge tonight in terms of managing the battery, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, very different circuit. Less real high-speed corners, more of the medium-speed corners that we're looking at. And, of course, that snail section going through the first sector of turns 1, 2, and 3, I think maybe turn 4 as well in that little sequence right at the start of the lap. And we've spoken about what we're seeing this week. Let's have a look at quickly the calendar before we jump in, because we've gone from Australia to China and we've got quite a few circuits still to visit. Round 2 of 12 with a couple of break weeks just dotted in there to separate things up. Silverstone, we go back to a circuit in a week's time that was similar to what we experienced in Australia, and then Austria, the Red Bull Ring, round 4 in a couple of weeks' time. Then is our first break before we go through Spa, after Suzuka, wrong way around, 6 comes after 5, Bahrain, and then the Circuit of the Americas, and then Jeddah, which we said last week, and we're going to say it again, we're going to be a broken record up until we head to Saudi Arabia. That's going to be carnage. Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi to round us off. But what is a very exciting looking calendar.
It is. I'm really looking forward to it. Lots of great circuits in there, and ones that we might see for the very first time on the F1 2026 regulations. So we are probably going to experience firsthand quite how these cars handle and develop as they make their way around those circuits. The much needed break weeks will come, I think, as a relief to quite a few of us up and down the field and in the commentary box as well, because it's nice to have a week off from time to time.
It is. Give you just a chance to reset, restock, take stock of things that have gone on. And we do need to talk about what happened a week ago, because it was a Racing Bulls V-Carb 1-2, and it was a really exciting one. Sergio Sabrina with a big undercut got the track position, got himself a 5 or 6 second lead at one stage before being clawed back in. It was Tycho Hardy, it was Luca Rapassa in there. Luca Rapassa with an interesting tactic at the start of the last lap, choosing to really recharge into turn 1. And that allowed Tycho Hardy effectively just to mug him into turn 1, take second place. And that was the end of the road for Luca Rapassa, who came home in third. And we had some really interesting battles throughout the field as well. Julian Klaffenborg from the back of the grid to P4 at the flag, but Tamas Kokeni with a penalty being removed, pushing the Haas back down to P5. And some interesting incidents going on as well. Joris Krozen took pole, mistake halfway through the race, threw himself out of contention. Steven Vazo was very quick at one stage. Same with Gabor Chonstos, who I think was sideways coming out of turn 2 on the opening lap after starting P4.
Absolutely. Lots of recovery drives, lots of fantastic driving up and down the field, which led to a fantastic Australian Grand Prix. And we turn our attention, of course, to China here tonight. And first and foremost, shall we have a look at our driver lineups and see who's taking the respective field?
I think we should have a bit of a gander to see who is missing and who is back in. The two Mercedes drivers still there. For the first time, we see Angelo D'Ortenzo jumping in alongside Lucas Beisner, replacing Fabrizio Donoso, who was here last week but had some connection issues. Two Depressor Cam, winner of the second social race in Zandvoort a few weeks ago, is here for the first time with Larry Tulke and Aaron Raminguez. Steven Vazo and Francesco Largo once again for Alpine. And Tycho Hardy is there, but Sergio Sabrino is not piloting that Racing Bulls car. Instead, it's going to be Tom Roberts.
Absolutely is. Good replacement, and one that I think will do well tonight here in China. And the Haas lineup pretty much unchanged, with Joris Kroes and Julian Klaffenbach alongside them. Williams have got one change. Nelson Alves with steps in with Alex Santana alongside them for the first time this season. Liam Stevens and Tony Hightower are at the Lean Green Racing Machines before Joe Murphy and Paitor, I'm not going to try and pronounce that last name, apologies, in Audi, and then Tomasz Kokene and Tamas Gal as well for Cadillac. So lots of drivers to look forward to. But should we see how they stacked up against one another in terms of our driver standings?
I think we should have a look, and that will, of course, give us the race result as well from what happened 7 days ago. Sergio Sabrino not here this week, but is leading the way. Top 15 score points in the championship. Tycho Hardy in second, ahead of Luca Rapassa, Tamas Kokeni and Julian Klaffenborg, your top 5. Joris Kroes in there, level with Joe Murphy. Can picking up that point for pole position, leaving them both on 6. Down to Victor Valdes, Steven Vaso, Gabo Chancellors and Alejandro Luero, your top 15 points scorers. As qualifying is just underway, you can see there, over to the constructors, Racing Bull leading that comfortably as well, ahead of Cadillac and McLaren. Will be looking to take a sizable chunk out of that championship lead.
It will indeed, and it will all be to play for over the course of 12 and 14 rounds respectively. And we look, and drivers are just getting themselves prepared and ready. Of course, multiple intermediate runs at the moment as they get those cars and ensure the setups are running at the nth degree that they will be required to. Full qualifying as always here in the Ventauri Pro Series, and it is only just getting started.
Is indeed Q1, Q2 and Q3 to sink your teeth into before a 50% race to take us around the Shanghai International Circuit. And remember, soft compound tyres in this qualifying session, despite the lobby restart, are going to have to be treated like gold dust. And as well, if you missed it last week, we are running the multiplayer car for qualifying. Don't fret, we will be back in the official F126 cars by the time we head into the Grand Prix. Hence, of course, our lobby restart. As Lucas Bison are out there on the intermediate tyres, trying to save some softs for the end of the session.
Going purple in the first sector was Larry Tilke, so opening signs that they could be competitive when it comes down to actually finding form in the correct set of tyres. It is a tough one to try and call this early on because, of course, the intermediates handle significantly differently than you'd expect for an actual set of the dry compound and Pirelli tyres. But nonetheless, gives you a little bit of an insight to see who might be pushing in these early stages. We have had a purple first sector from Nelson Alves as well, so maybe they're finding form here today.
Yeah, and these intermediate runs will not be too meaningful for a lot of the drivers, just to try and waste a bit of time, maybe get your eye ever so slightly, because the Inters aren't too bad to drive around this circuit as Bison is to the line in what would be a Ferrari in the race. A 36.6 is the benchmark set, as Larry Tilke does go 0.3 of a second faster. We see Nelson Alves there into the chicane at the start of the final sector through turns 11 and 12. Back of the car was stepping out a little bit, looked a bit reluctant as well to rotate through the apex of turn 11 and turn 12 in this game. Very tricky traction zone. Haven't got as much downforce as we had in the ground effect era car, so you just got to be a little bit careful with the loud pedal as Luca Rapassa by 1 millisecond goes ahead of Tilke.
Close, and of course this is only for bragging rights officially, as our drivers do just get themselves prepared and get their cars prepared, everything in that mindset. We have got Nelson Alves up towards the line. They will be next. Can they beat a 36.3? Well, not quite. They're in the 36.3s, but still find themselves exactly 200ths off the pace here. So we'll be looking to improve on that should they come on to the dry or proper compound of tyres, essentially. We have got 13 minutes left in the session. We expect drivers to start off in the next few, because the most embarrassing thing is going out in Q1 and taking that early shower.
Yeah, you've got quite a while to wait, haven't you? Once everybody else is still going through Q2 and then into Q3, you're sat there with your tail between your legs, twiddling your thumbs as you wait for your rivals to just get even more hooked up. But doesn't always matter. We saw, and we mentioned it at the start, Julian Klaffenbach was knocked out in Q1 last week, managed to fight his way through. Really good strategy to end up inside the top 5 as Liam Stevens out on the circuit now. I imagine that will probably be on a set of the soft compound tyres. There was a nice little mix last time out in Australia in Q1. We had some drivers going for the one run, some drivers their hand was really forced by where they found themselves after the first runs, having to go for a couple of lap times, some on the same set of soft tyres, some burning through a couple of sets, as Liam Stevens in what I can only assume is the Aston Martin car, the green machine with the Roscoe stickers planted all over the halo and the front of it, the first driver out there on the softs.
Not only the halo, the front and the sides, the inlets as well on the left and right hand side. So deciding that they are going to completely stick a bomb that car as best as they possibly can as they run out the exit of the second sector, just trying to get the tyres into that optimal working condition. We will expect them to go first on the leaderboards. They are the first driver out there on a set of the soft compound of tyres, but nobody else has made their way or made their venture onto this Shanghai International Circuit at present. A couple will be probably making their way out the pits in the next few moments. I see movement in the pit lane, but as so far, it is just Liam Stevens deciding that they want the track just to themselves.
Letting go of the steering wheel there to warm up the tyres as he accidentally dipped a couple of them into the grass. And it's interesting, isn't it, before qualifying, because we do have a lot of downtime, because obviously they have less tyres than they do in real life. They'd usually get 5 or 6 sets of tyres to complete qualifying with. Here, we only have 3 or perhaps 4, depending on what tyre allocation you choose. I've always wondered if we can implement a feature where we can customize the length of qualifying as well, because then we can still make the most of the knockout format. But maybe if we set it to, I don't know, 6 or 7 minute sessions, 6, 7, 8 minute sessions, then we almost treat it as a bit of a shootout. You know, you get one run, maybe a couple of runs if you time it right, and we still get the drama of the knockout session.
Absolutely, and that's what I love about qualifying. I'd love to see, I'd even go a step further and say I'd love a one-shot quali format for Q1, and then 2 and 3 can persist as normal. Maybe, like you said, with a little bit of shorter time, because you don't need this much time in an esports game, because you have that ability to go again, recharge. You can, obviously, you don't need to maintain the gaps like you do in real life, but also on the flip side, I love the ability to be able to come into the pits, change tyres only, and go straight back out again, instead of having to go through that whole animation of changing your tyres and getting into the garage, putting the blankets on, and dealing with all that shenanigans that you have to do here. That, you know, that would open up some strategic options for drivers, I think.
A lot of filler time, I think, is the best way to put it, as we're almost halfway through qualifying 1 already, just 5 lap times on the board. Welcome in for people joining us. Q1, Q2, Q3, no lap time set on the soft tyres as yet. The top 5 were all out on the intermediates, and this lap time from Liam Stevens is just a warm-up lap to make sure that he gets the tyres in the optimal window. It's going to be comfortably slower, you would imagine, than those drivers in the 36 and 37s, respectively. Most of the field out on the circuit now as well. That will be on the red striped soft compound tyres, preparing for their first attack of the Shanghai circuit.
Absolutely right. And we will see a lot more drivers. You can see them on your screens on the left-hand side. And people asking us to show the battery. No. That's all I'm going to say to that. No.
Gives an unfair advantage. It does, because if we choose one driver in particular to watch, you can see what their battery strategies are. And if you know anything about esports, which a lot of us do, they don't like it when their tactics are shown. You can see sometimes when they post their flying laps on the old social medias, they blank out the HUD, don't they?
Yeah.
And the I can't remember what they call it now. The dial. Is it called the dial in the middle?
The on-screen display, yeah.
Yeah, with the gears that they take and all of that stuff, because they're so desperate to try and keep all of the secrets. So I don't think people will be particularly pleased if we show their battery usage. Liam Stevens with a 23.7 in the first sector. Unfair advantage when everyone who is knocked out is watching. Touche.
Yeah, but they can't exactly use it to go faster, so that sounds like a non-existent problem, realistically.
It does. And I think we're all tired of mentioning battery over and over again, because we saw it in Spa, didn't we, a couple of days ago, with some people being fairly critical, rightly so. And there was a video that was released earlier, actually, by the race, talking about how AI has basically taken over how it works. And I think we're starting now to be drip-fed a little bit more information as to what the real struggles are with these new regulations, with the AI systems that are used to manage the deployment automatically. But then obviously when you get it wrong, or you make a slight mistake, or you use a little bit more battery in a different spot, that completely throws everything it knows out of the window.
It really does, and I think that's where we're starting to find not only the limitations of these cars and regulations, but also the systems that the teams are employing to be able to do these calculations as they go through on the minute. Liam Stevens, through the final quarter, though, will set the first representative lap time. They haven't gone purple in either of the first 2 sectors, but it is purple in the third, so they do go fast. It's a 1:31 flat. Keep an eye on Tamas Gal, though. They have gone purple in the first and the second.
Looking very nice so far. That 31 flat, the benchmark for everybody to chase, and Francesco Largo lowers it by 18 milliseconds in the Alpine. Tony Heitler first driver now to the 130s, 130.8 for the Aston Martin, as Joe Murphy fourth fastest on a 31.1, slowest of the 4 times that we've had on the soft tyres so far. Marcel Paps, 131.8, going to need to find a decent whack of time. Same with Steven Vaso, 31.4. You would imagine that is nowhere near going to be good enough to get yourself out of qualifying 1. Here comes Gal through the final corner. Will this be the benchmark stolen away from Tony Heitler? To the line we go, 30.9, slots into position 2.
Purple sector in the first and the second, personal best in the third, but couldn't find the improvement that they needed. It's a very similar story by P18, that's Andres Tenzio, as they did find time in the third and 19th. They keep jumping around too fast for me. But purple in the first sector, personal best in the second, but they have to have a good third and final section to see if they're able to try and run their way down towards the line. Can they take top spot? They can. It's a 1:38.52, finding just 11 thousandths of a second on Tony Heitler.
First appearance of the season for D'Ortenzio, and setting down a benchmark there, 30.852 with 6 minutes to go. Just Klaffenborg, no longer Klaffenborg, who goes 6th fastest on a 31 flat. Krozen and Chonstos yet to get a time on the board. Marcel Papp's slowest at the moment, a second off the outright pace as Krozen, last week's pole sitter, goes 8th fastest on a 31 flat. Was fastest in Q1, Q2 and Q3, Joris Krozen. Whether we can see that pace continue, we'll have to wait and see as Gabor Chonstos goes 3rd fastest on a 30.888. And those are the 22 drivers that have set times so far. Your bottom 6 with 5.5 to go. Conrad Bohm, Alex Santana, Tom Roberts, Steven Vaso and Nelson Alves. As Liam Stevens retiring in the pit, so he thinks clearly a 31 flat is going to be enough to get him through into the final or into the second part of qualifying. And Francesco Largo also thinking a 31 flat will be good enough.
This is going to be very close. And reminded that Julian Klaffenbach and Francesco Largo both set equal lap times. Klaffenbach setting it 2nd fastest. So they will be behind Largo in our timing tower unless Klaffenbach does decide to go faster in the remaining 5 minutes of this session. But it's close to say, isn't it, for Liam Stevens? Because there is only 8 tenths between himself and being last placed on this leaderboard. It's a very bold call very early on, and we see a lot of other drivers now retiring, the likes of Haitala and Gal as well, who admittedly, if 2 below them have already retired, the expectation would be they're probably safe as well. Tycho Hardy follows suit, and we probably expect Chonstos and D'Ortenzio as well to retire within the next few moments.
Yeah, and this is just the equivalent, isn't it, of real life, where the drivers opt not to go out at the end of the session. The drivers instead just retiring means they can go once more. Looking at the times, what do we think is potentially the safety net that drivers need to try and escape? I'm thinking 31 flats should be safe. We'll have to wait and see. Joris Krozen now on a 31.096. Might just be sweating bullets a little bit if they want to retire and go again. 31.2s are the drivers that are currently on the bubble or just in the relegation zone. Then you've got Roberts, Vaso, Alves and Paps a little bit detached. 31.3 back to 31.8 with Marcel Paps, who's still out there on the road at the moment. Not sure if it's a fast lap. We'll have to wait and see if the Aston Martin, is it for Marcel Paps, comes around the final couple of corners.
They are finding time. It is a personal best in the 1st and the 2nd, and on par with drivers around them for both those sectors. About a 10th or 2 slower than his closest competitors in the 2nd sector alone. So we'll have to find a bit of a miracle in the 3rd and final. Chonstos now retires, as to be expected, as does Klaffenbach. The top 8 have all decided their times are fast enough, but no, into the pits comes Klaffenbach, which means that just 9th through 22nd are left out there on the circuit. And you're talking about cut-off times here, Tom. And I was going to go with the impression probably 31.1 is where drivers would have to be safe, but maybe 31 flat and a half if we want to go maybe that specific.
Yeah, I'm looking at Larry Tulke there, 31.1 in 14th. You would imagine drivers are going to find a decent chunk of time. Luca Rapassa slightly down the order, P11, 31.1. Wasn't particularly outstanding in qualifying last week either. Winner of the first social race and potentially could have won round number 1 last week in Australia, barring for some potential ERS mismanagement in the final couple of laps. 11th fastest at the moment, definitely under a little bit of pressure, just over, or just under I should say, a 10th and a half clear of the bottom 6. Bottom 5, I nearly called it, out of habit, of course, with 22 cars on the grid for the first time since 2016. But Steven Vaso out there at the moment in a very interesting liveried car, very colourful, like a kaleidoscope of colour as we come through turn number 12 and onto the very, very long back straight. And Vaso, realistically, got to find a third of a second at least to try and be comfortable, you would think.
I believe that is actually the Karma Chameleon racing team that we're seeing down towards the final quarter. It looks like that, doesn't it? It's very colourful. I'm not quite sure what it's meant to be emulating, because there is maybe VCarb with the colours that we're seeing, but will of course make their way up towards the final few corners to start what will be potentially their final lap, unless they have maybe 2 hot runs in them. They'll open the straight line mode up, which does indicate to us that they are probably going to go for it here.
Yeah, the qualifying laps come and go, but Steven Vaso will be hoping that he manages to make it through into that second part of qualifying. Like I said, third of a second you would think he needs to try and assure himself of a spot inside the top 16. A little bit wide through the first part, but nice tight run, real tiger line there through turns 3. Bit of a wobble though over the curve of turn number 4, just putting the car off kilter ever so slightly. And we see the delta time down by half a tenth through the first sector, and I think he's bailed on that one already.
Does look like that. A lot of short shifting we're seeing into the second sector, so not exactly what you'd like to see. The lights are flashing, so that'd be my indication they are recharging this battery to its entirety, and I think they'll just have about 30 seconds or so left to go until that checkered flag flies once they do make it up towards the line. So they've left themselves enough leeway to try and send it once again. We watch on board with the driver in P12 and again running, I'm going to assume a Renault livery or a Cadillac because that is somewhat yellow, up towards the second sector, are improving by 43 thousandths of a second.
Bakelec up, like you said, by 400ths of a second. Bohm on a flying lap, along with Roberts and Alves. Those three in the bottom six, along with Santana, along with Varzo, and along with Marcel Paps, who is on an out lap as we speak. 45 seconds to go. Stakelec negotiates the high-speed corners in the middle set. The back of the car just misbehaving a little bit as he tried to throw it through turn 8 and the quick change of direction into turn 9. Do we still find time in the middle sector? Yes. Just under a tenth and a half found. If Stakelec can continue this pace, should be comfortably inside the top 16 and probably in the 30s.
That's certainly looking the way. Down the long down the long back straight, essentially opening the straight line mode, and they can burn whatever battery they potentially have left in their tank. The tokens that you have in terms of how much battery you have to deploy is going to be at its absolute minimum as a heavy braking zone in towards this hairpin. Slams on the anchors, throws the car in, hits the apex but drifts slightly wide. Does Stachulek, and out towards the final corner. Can they secure safety from where they are in P12?
Second flag out. Tom Roberts is done. Didn't get round in time, so that is 19th at best. Stakelec to the line, improves. 30.9, goes 5th fastest. Should be comfortably safe into the next part of qualifying. Steven Varzo going again in the Kaleidoscope car. Tom Roberts, you can see there, didn't get the lap time in, invalidating as well. So not a good session there for Robertson. Is the first to bade adieu. Nelson Alves needs to find time. Back of the car steps out a little bit through the final corner. 16th fastest only. Nelson Alves massively on the bubble.
He is, and it's looking very close for himself at the moment. He'll be hoping, begging and praying that other drivers aren't improving, but 16th, 17th, both of them improving. Varso's improving, Marcel Paps also improving as well. So it is going to be a very close run to the line. Beissner next across the line though.
Kenny goes 12th fastest, make that 13th as Larry Tulke up to P9. Beissner in the bottom 6, no longer, jumps up from 17th to 7th. Nelson Alves is joining Tom Roberts on the sideline. Taras Kokeni now 15th fastest as there's an improvement for Tudor Pressacan in 13th. Luca Ripassa was on the bubble but goes 5th fastest on a 30.9. Steven Varzo needs this lap time desperately to knock Kokeni, finished 4th last week out of qualifying but only 20th fastest. Santana under pressure, 17th is out as well. We wait for Bohm and we wait for Paps, who are the latest drivers that could try and knock Kokeni and Pressacan out of qualifying.
Bohm's done, Paps is done as well. Neither driver will find an improvement. So Liam Stevens saved by about 75 thousandths of a second. Not much in it between himself and taking an early shower at the end of Q1. Alex Santana will be absolutely heartbroken here because look at that, exact same lap time as Tamas Kokene. But unfortunately, he's setting it second fastest, so they do find themselves below the driver for TRT.
Really find yourself going against the rub of the green there. Identical lap time, setting it a little bit later, and that will be that for Alex Santana, along with Nelson Alves, Conrad Bohm, Steven Varzo, Tom Roberts, and Marcel Paps, the 6th that make way in the first part of qualifying. Tamas Kokeni, take out a lottery ticket with that one, sir. You are very, very lucky to squeeze through. Tudor Pressacan maybe slightly under-delivering as well in P15, and Liam Stevens getting it right with that retirement earlier on. The 36 flat was enough to get through, and in fact the top 15, all 36 dead and under.
Absolutely. And as we head into Q2, there'll be another cut-off point. There'll be another opportunity for drivers to maybe have an ego retire early. It's less likely to be seen in the second qualifying session. Of course, it does get a little bit more competitive as we head into the second and third qualifying. And by the time we reach Q3, it is all to play for in terms of who will take provisional pole position. But your drivers that are out, as mentioned earlier, it's Santana, Alves, Bohm, Varso, Roberts and Paps. The top 16 progress through to Q2.
That top 16 separated by, well, top 17, we need to remember as well, separated by just over a quarter of a second there. Really tight margins. Alex Santana falling on the wrong side of that, of course. Half a tenth separating Kokeni and Pressacan in front. And the top 5 separated by less than a tenth of a second. So nice late runs as well. Luca Ripassa was under a bit of pressure, up to P6, I think, in the end. Good lap time from Larry Tulke as well. Nestled comfortably inside the top 10 when they found themselves under pressure going into those final runs. So from 22, we cut it down to 16 and 15 minutes now on the clock.
Absolutely right. And all drivers will be hoping to find a spot and hope it out for a place in the third and final qualifying session, which will, of course, determine pole position and who will start from the front. And not to sound like too much of a Will Buxton here, Tom, but if you start from the front, you have a better odd of winning the race.
Who would have thunk it, everybody? Pole position, better chance of winning. And it is actually doubly important qualifying, isn't it? Yes, we've had a couple of examples. Julian Klaffenbach will come back to again. Qualified at the back of the pack, made his way through the field, was a really good strategy. But if you get bogged down in battles in the midfield during the race, you lose so much time with the flip-flop racing, the battery management going on. You burn to pass someone, they burn to get back through. Somebody else comes out of nowhere, takes the pair of you. You're losing tenths of a second every single corner with the debating of position. So clean air, and clear track position, absolutely vital. And that, of course, all starts from a good qualifying.
Certainly does indeed. And one thing we haven't really spoken about much over the course of Q1, because it is somewhat less of a concern and probably gets more so as we head into Q2 and Q3, is the, I want to say the requirement that we spoke about last week, where drivers cannot be too close to another car in front of them in order to benefit from an element of slipstream or along those lines. But again, no formal declaration of how close is too close for some of these drivers, so it is kind of up to them and up to their engineers to determine how close they can be to the car in front before maybe considering it an infringement and benefiting from the DRS. And Bert Mylander's decided to join us for a drive once again. This is a bug since been here since F124.
And we've got safety car turned off, so I don't know how this has happened. Bert Mylander clearly not playing by the rules. There he is in the Mercedes. The only official car we've technically got on the grid at the moment, with the multiplayer cars going round. But Bern happily out there on a Sunday drive, or Saturday as it would be if this was real life. And this is going to pose an interesting challenge for the drivers to try and make their way through and avoid what is now very much a rolling roadblock.
I'm very curious as to what's going to happen. I'd love to see if he pulls into the pits, if he continues to drive around, because I remember this happened in Spa for PCF1 back in the day, and I must admit, as much as it is easy to make me chuckle, that did make me chuckle. We'll see him up towards the line. He continues on. He's going to set a hot lap as well, so we've got 17 drivers in effect here in the second qualifying session.
So it's 7 drivers that will jump out in qualifying 2. But Mylander powers down into turn number 1. Gabor Chonstos just drives straight through him like he's not even there. And he'll fly through the snail section at the start of the lap in the Mercedes liveried multiplayer car, which will, of course, become the official Silver Arrows by the time we switch from qualifying to the race. Hopefully the drivers can avoid Bert Mylander. I think there are a few that were a little bit wary going down the back straight, not sure if they could just drive straight through and Bert was going to be ghosted, or whether they could go through and they had to go around instead. But a 30 or a 23.9, I think that was first sector for Gabor Chonstos. A little bit off the pace, but you would imagine these will be on used tyres for a lot of drivers.
Piotr, first purple sector of the afternoon. It was the first purple, and Tamas Gal taking the middle sector, immediately stolen away by Piotr as well, once again in towards the long right-hander, which opens up the long back straight. The other second driver, of course, out on circuit just behind, I believe, of Tamas Gal, which explains why they are trading purple sectors like they are Pokemon cards. And Seb's asking, can we get the safety cars qualifying lap time? I wish it was on my screen, because I would absolutely keep you all informed on that.
Maybe that's the inspiration for the livery for Stakelec. The Pikachu livery, as they've been trading Pokemon cards. But as we approach turn 16, the final one of the lap with Stakelec, a little bit wide, just using the curb, keeping his foot planted to the floor. And the benchmark is a 31.1 for everybody to chase in the second part of qualifying. As Klaffenbach just in the back of shot with a 31.3, Bison a 31.5, and Chonstos to the line with a 31.9.
Purple third sector for Klaffenbach as well, and not any others being shared out. Piotr, the first and second sector being purple in there. Namely, I'm trying to find Mylander. I'll be honest, this is going to be a game that I might play, is where is Mylander on this circuit? And Harley, if you're watching, if we can have a made-up graphic saying the safety car's lap time, if someone wants to go around and time it, that would be absolutely idyllic, because I guarantee someone out there is going to be able to calculate the time that Bert Mylander takes to get round here in qualifying.
That'll be an interesting one for people that aren't in the know when they see that graphic, if it comes out. But Petr Stakelec, fastest at the moment on that 31.1, a time that ironically wouldn't have actually got you into qualifying 2, leading the way on the used tyre runs at the start of the session. 7 drivers heading out there. A few of them getting decent banker lap times. Gabor Chonstos on that 31.9 will be, well, you set under a little bit of pressure, but you have to say none of these drivers, you would think on those banker lap times, will progress through into the top 10 shootout. Because the tyre wear we know around this circuit, yes, the soft tyres are improved in the 26 cars compared to 25, but this is a bit of a tyre churner, isn't it?
They are, and it's tyres that do take the beating. We'll see it when we get into the race situation as well, where they are struggling to manage them because they are one that you have to just kind of nurture, care for, pretend they're like a little baby goat or something, and just hold on to them soft and subtly and not abuse them too much, mainly through that opening first sector where they can take a bit of a beating on the asphalt that is beneath their rubber. But everybody practically into pit road. Then Tony Hightower has waited for the circuit to be almost clear before heading out, joined by Francesco Largo as well. We have got 2 cars, makes that 3 as another car is making their way out. That's Tamas Gal, who didn't set that opening lap time. They were first in the, first and second sector. They obviously decided the third wasn't quite good enough to set a representative lap time.
And we return to our game of glorified Where's Wally, Where's Byrne, as we look to find Mylander out on the circuit, masquerading as Mylander. Somebody out there who decided that, as has been said in the chat actually, safety car was turned off, and Byrne took that personally. Didn't like the fact that we were holding him back in the pit lane and he wouldn't be making an appearance, so he's going to decide to go out on his own terms, as Tony Hightower so far hasn't run into the Mercedes on this outlap as yet. We'll wait and see what happens. Of course, you can drive through the safety car. Very realistic, of course, but hopefully won't be too off-putting if we do come across a slightly mischievous Byrne out on the circuit.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there, you can just see heading into the hairpin. So, excellent news. We can take down the missing person posters because we know that Bernd Mylander is safe and well, as he's about to start what I imagine will be a brand new qualifying lap. 17th fastest for Bernd at the moment. Well, he's probably 8th fastest actually at the moment. So, as things stand, Bernd Mylander's heading into Q3.
He's making his way through. Someone apparently has stolen the safety car. That did happen in NASCAR once. An infamous story, and half the reason why these cars now have to be looked after a little bit more closely guarded. But watch Hightower through the final corner. Is Bernd Mylander in the distance? I can't quite tell if he started a lap or not. If not, he's made his way into the pit, but he has set a lap time nonetheless. Tony Hightower in towards the opening snail section of this course here in Shanghai, and we'll be hoping to try and beat off the top spot, which is currently set at a 1:31.178.
This will feel a little bit like one-shot qualifying, I would expect, once the drivers all start going. Whether this will be on used tyres again or whether drivers are bolting on a brand new set. There's Burnt as he just comes out of turn number 6. Tony Hightower cranks on the steering lock, gets the front to bite as he charges through turn 6 and now into the high-speed turn 7. Byrne has got absolutely nothing to fight with as the Aston Martin phases through the Mercedes. Clearly Aston Martin better than Mercedes. Just don't look at the real-life Constructors' Championship. Francesco Largo will be next to arrive on the scene with a slightly surprised look as he sees the Mercedes going through turn 7, turns 8 and up towards turn 9. Where is Byrne? There's the flash of crimson just in the distance.
I give Bernd his credit here. He is dragging that Mercedes car around like it owes him money at the moment because he's setting an awfully good lap time. That's quicker than they normally believe would go under safety car conditions as they make their way into the final sector. It was purple in the first sector originally for Francesco Largo. It's been taken away by Tamas Gal, as we have got Tony Hightower purple in the middle sector, looking to make improvements and set their first representative time of the afternoon. Up towards the final corner, car going slow on the right-hand side, moves out of the way, which is good sportsmanship, and we love to see it.
Tony Hightower to the line, bit of oversteer coming out of the final corner. 1:30.772 though. That's the fastest time that we've seen so far. Tony Hightower putting a benchmark time down and a bit of a bulldozer to potentially the drivers that thought they were feeling confident. Francesco Largo into the 30s, 30.9, 10th and a half down on Hightower's personal best as Tamas Gal now lowers the benchmark by a further 600ths. We're starting to get some serious lap times here. Tycho Hardy 1 millisecond slower than Hightower. Joris Krozen 4th fastest as well on a 30.8.
Purple in the middle sector and the first sector, I believe, was Andrea D'Ortenzio making their way in towards the penultimate few corners. They'll get the car slowed down and in towards the final, looking to make improvements. Personal best in the first, purple in the second. Can D'Ortenzio try and take away the top spot from Tamas Gal? Crosses the line. They certainly can by 11 thousandths of a second. And they will go to provisional, well, I was going to say provisional pole position, but it's not. Guaranteed through to Q3 as things stand.
Zakalek 6th fastest, but just ahead. Hightower, Hardy and Stevens. 3rd, 4th, 5th separated by 2 thousandths of a second. Unbelievable stuff there. Luca Rapassa approaching the final corner now, up by a couple of tenths as we have an improvement for Julian Klaffenburg, 6th fastest. Another driver, another member of the 30.7 club. Luca Rapassa can't get inside the top 10. Make that 12th fastest now as Gabor Chonstos goes 3rd. Another driver, 30.7, top 7, all of them 30.7s. That looks like the money time for drivers to try and chase to get through into the top 10 shootout. Kokeni to the line now, 16th becomes 12th on a 30.8. I think that is everyone who has gone. Just a quarter of a second separating the 16 drivers. Currently, Beisner, Kokeni, Rapassa, Largo, Preskant and Tulki need to find a bit more pace.
Going to make a very bold assumption here, Tom. I don't think there's going to be any ego retires here in Q2. There is not going to be anybody that feels that they are safe when it is such a close margin between 1st and 16th, where it could quite literally change in the blink of an eye, because we know just how volatile the lap times are, not only in China, but of course on the 2026 regulations, as Andrea D'Ortenzio is drifting the final corner, inheriting his inner Brendan Lee. And if you remember that, a fantastic final season and a final year for Lee in F1 Esports, a grand retirement and a well-deserved one, like the 2 times world champion for F1 sim racing.
Inaugural champion as well back in 2017, I think it was, or at least on the F1 2017 game. I am going to make one slight change to your prediction. I think the top 2 will retire. I think D'Ortenzio and Gal will jump out of that one, half a tenth in hand over Chonstos in P3. I think that is enough of a margin for enough drivers just to slot in between Gal and Chonstos for the time being, for those guys to feel pretty comfortable. Definitely got to be in the 30.7, so I doubt we're going to see everybody into the 30.6s, but that should be the money time that everybody will be aiming for. 4 drivers in the 30.9s definitely need to get their skates on a little bit more, but with 3 minutes to go, everybody back in pit road. Cameron Kokeni, the last of them to jump into the slow lane, and we wait for these final runs and see who is confident enough, who will go for the ego retirement.
That will be the question, and many more answered within the next 3 minutes and some change, of course, depending on how soon drivers start their final runs of the afternoon. We've got Sergio Sabrino, who is in the live chat down on YouTube. Hi, Sergio, welcome in. Why are you not racing today? That is my question to you. Where are you? What is more important than this?
Straight to the point. Straight to the point in there. Cutting edge. Why are you not here, Sergio? Where are you?
We'll wait for that answer. And whilst we do, if you are watching along on YouTube, and first and foremost, it is absolutely fantastic to have you, as always, come and join us here on a Tuesday evening / afternoon / morning / night, depending on where you are in the world. Who do you think, if anybody, is going to be the driver that gets knocked out here in Q2? Who do you think is one of these 16 drivers that will not be making it through?
Sergio's on holiday. That is a very acceptable excuse. Enjoy your holidays, Sergio. We hopefully will see you back fairly shortly. Is everybody out on circuit, barring Joris Krozen at the moment, who is the last of them to head out in position 10 as things stand. Going to be really tight. I think we could see... Well, we've got everybody out on circuit, so you were correct, TK. We have got everybody going again. Clearly, D'Ortenzio and Gal in particular not feeling safe, despite being in 1st and 2nd. I'm not 100% sure where they are in the train. I would expect towards the rear of the train, just to make sure that if they don't need to get the lap time in, they can bail out on it. Yes, D'Ortenzio is 2nd last, just with Krozen in the rear. And then Tamas Gal in the middle. So not really going to get the opportunity to bail out of that one if you are heading round.
Absolutely. It is Jerry's birthday as well. So happy birthday, Jerry. I don't know how to pronounce him. Apologies. But I hope you've had a good day and hope you're enjoying watching the stream as well.
Oh, look how wholesome everybody is wishing happy birthday. Oh, enjoy that. Hopefully we can provide some good entertainment wherever you are in the world. Although you said nighttime earlier. If there are people watching us and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm concerned for your sleep deprivation and your sleep schedule, but I respect the hustle.
Where is it 3 o'clock in the morning? Let's have a little look.
Find that. We've
got
got some lap times going in, by the way. Tony Heitler started a run. As we go through the snail section, Tony Heitler 4th fastest at the moment. Will we find an improvement in Sector 1? 1 millisecond ahead of Tycho Hardy. He's 1 millisecond ahead of Liam Stevens. And it is an improvement by 300ths in the 1st sector. As there's Bernd. We haven't seen him for a while. Bernd up towards turn 7. It never gets old, everybody. I wonder if we'll have 11 cars in Q3 because Bernd's just going to blatantly throw all of the rule books out of the window and just jump onto the circuit anyway. 14 seconds to go. Under a little bit of pressure, Crozen potentially to get to the line. I think we will be there with about 7 seconds to spare. And yes, as Heitler down on their personal best, 200s through the middle sector, that could spell trouble if we see improvements from the group behind. Let's not forget Heitler less than a 10th, or just over a 10th, in fact, separating himself and Beisner in 11th.
We'll see on the run down towards the penultimate corner how much battery they've got available to burn and how much of that setup is favoured towards straight line speed. The heavy braking zone that will come a beckoning and a good opportunity to get some Lyco involved as well before burning quite literally every ounce of battery that you do have left. The timekeeper's clock has reached 0 though, so the checkered flag will fly. And this means no driver can set a final time. Heitler invalidates, so they cannot go faster. This is going to be a heart-in-mouth moment now for sure.
Sweating bullets, you'd have to say. Heitler, Francesco Lago improves, 10th fastest only, surely won't be enough. Liam Stevens fastest, 30.6, new fastest time we've seen so far today. Joe Murphy, 4th fastest, 30.7, make it 5th as Stakelec joins Liam Stevens in the 30.6s. Here's Tamas Gal, was 2nd. Do we jump up there? Yes, and wow, that is serious wheels. 30.4. What a statement that is from Gal. As I think the two McLarens are under a bit of pressure here. Presicant and Rapassa slowest. Beisner done, 12th only. Tulke done, 13th only. Francesco Lago clinging on by his fingernails. Tudor Presicant out as well, 16th. Couldn't find an improvement. Luca Rapassa to the line, 10th fastest only. Crozen could bump him out, as could Kilkenny.
Keep an eye on Crozen round the final corner. They'll go fastest. Kilkenny could not go faster. Crozen can. So Luca Rapassa will find their elimination in Q2. Klaffenbach will scrape through by the skin of their teeth after not finding time in the middle qualifying session. So Luca Rapassa, after all that was said and done, misses out by 9 thousandths of a second. Your bottom 6 then that will be eliminated. Heartbreak for the afternoon.
Luca Rapassa, the big shock there, you would have to say. But along with them, Francesco Lago out. Lucas Beisner, Larry Tulke, Tamas Kilkenny, and Tudor Presicant will make way in the second part of qualifying. But that lap time right at the end there from Tamas Gal maybe has just put a few eyes on Storks. Angelo D'Ortenzio with a good lap time as well, 30.5. But Tamas Gal, 30.4. First real quick time that we've seen so far, though D'Ortenzio did get pretty close.
He certainly did. 400ths of a second between the two drivers. 3/10 just covering 1st to 10th as well. So incredibly close margins as we head into the third and final qualifying session of the afternoon. And now I've done some research, Tom, and obviously we've got a little bit of downtime now before drivers go out for their final runs. 3 a.m. at the moment. It is in the Falklands.
That is a straight face that I'm pulling right now. Straight face. You can't see. The cameras aren't on, but we're just going to leave that one.
Yep.
I'm not going to say anything like hold that Argentina after losing the World Cup final with one of the worst displays I've ever seen. Enzo Fernandez, hold that one. Leandro Paredes, hold that one as well after trying to put, I can't remember who it was. Was it Pedri in a chokehold at the end of the game? Very classy stuff, it has to be said, from the deposed World Cup champions, of course, with Lionel Messi, you would imagine, bowing out from international football. But we turn our attention back to a sport that actually matters. Oh, that's gonna get a few bites potentially.
That could be a clip on Twitter in about 10 minutes' time, so be careful with that one.
Sorry. Well done, Spain. You know? Well done, Spain.
We were all Spanish at the end of the day.
I mean, I imagine that's Harley, who's the Ventauri. I mean, it's gone even further than what I said about the Argentinians. I mean, I don't disagree with you either, but I'm not bitter as well. As you can probably tell, we're both from England land. And yes, my door did have a foot-shaped hole in it after Argentina scored twice in the last 5 minutes. But we don't need to get bogged down in the nitty-gritty as to what happened to my testosterone when we conceded 2 late goals after Thomas Tuchel got the widest bus you've ever seen and took off all the attacking players.
If anything here, Tom, and we can hold this in solemn victory, we've won more finals than Argentina in the World Cup finals because we won the bronze final.
Oh, yes. Bronze medal winners. You'll never sing that. 6-4. I didn't even watch that game. I was too annoyed about what happened. I just happened to look at Instagram at about 11 o'clock and it said, half-time, France 0, England 4. And I was like, what the hell has gone on here?
Well, it's because we didn't start Harry Kane. It was a masterclass by Ivan Toney up front, and we just seemed like a very flowing squad when the pressure was off, and it was a completely different England squad. Seb asks, what's our thoughts on Thomas Tuchel? How do I put this politely? He can have a visa.
Fraud watch, most definitely. I've heard that BBC Sport were reporting that Italy are in talks with Pep Guardiola. I'd be hoping that the FA can slide into Pep Guardiola's DMs as well to try and steal him away from the Italians.
Do we trust England playing total football, though?
Well, it works better than park the bus Jose Mourinho, like, levelled up to 9,000. Can we see the ERS? Also, England a poo. I agree with the second part of that one. ERS, no, we're not going to be showing that. Another any ERS.
Right, you can see the ERS right now. Until they head out the pits,
100%.
All of them, surprisingly or not, are on 100% ERS, and that's all we're going to show of it for the rest of the afternoon. You're welcome.
Rest of the afternoon?
Yeah.
Wow. You've been told, everybody. First out on the circuit, though, is Stakelek in a car that I can't remember because we're still running the multiplayer liveries, of course. Oh, it was the Renault, wasn't it? No, that's Rapasa and Pressacan. But I think we're just going to call it a Renault because that's exactly the 2020 Renault livery.
It's the Pikachu car.
Almost. Do they go to normal cars for the race? Yes, we will be going back to the standard cars for our 50% race. That will be following, thankfully, for I think all of us, because then we can work out what's going on.
Yeah, thank goodness. And we can actually see the liveries as they're intended, and all the sponsors will be happy once again. All the teams will be happy once again. And drivers won't, I don't know, complain over milliseconds when it comes to qualify. But equally, it has been that close where it could determine things in qualify. So I stand corrected in that element, that if it is going to be that close in qualifying, then fair play running the multiplayer cars does solve a problem that in theory should never have been a problem to start with. But Stachulek, the first driver out on track at the moment, just over 8 minutes on our timekeeper's clock, and we'll see how this goes.
Alex Santana was knocked out in Q1 after setting exactly the same time as the driver that was in P16. And who knows, if we ran the 2026 cars, that could have been different. Could have gone in the favour of the driver that went through. I can't quite remember who it was. Or it could have gone in the favour of Alex Santana, and we had a different result. But as we are finding ourselves here, we continue on with the multiplayer cars for the time being as we barrel through the snail section with Stakelek, and they'll be the first to head out there on Alex Santana. I can tell you 1,000th matters. I feel sorry for you there, my friend. I do. Unfortunate stuff. But we'll see what Stakelek can manage through the first sector. 23.7 is decent, but not spectacular.
It's purple. A purple sector is a purple sector. He can hold his head up for that one. Of course, it will probably be beaten by someone else as we make our way through the course of this third and final qualifying session. But at the moment, they will be on par to set the fastest lap of the session so far. 7 minutes and some change left on our qualifying clock, and opening up the straight line mode down towards that long elongated right-hander.
Absolutely. 51.3 through the first couple of sectors, through the chicane of turns 11 and 12. Now through the endlessly long right-hander of 13. Back of the car stepping out a couple of times over the bumps and the undulations. The Stakelek now onto the back straight. You can just relax a little bit here and maybe burn a little of the battery that you've managed to save through that middle sector. Just a couple more braking zones left to negotiate. Into turn number 14. Slam the anchors on. Throw the car in. Not quite flicking. You can see the understeer there. The front of the car washing slightly wide of the apex. Through 15, which is, of course, flat out. Not really a corner. Chuck it into 16. And we invalidate over the apex on the inside. And that is not good news at all. It would have been a 31 flat for Stakelek, which nowhere near quick enough. So must have been on the used tyres.
Looking that way, and for Tamas Gal, purple in the first sector. It was purple in the second, but that has now been taken away by Liam Stevens. So sharing purple honoraries in the opening two sectors. We'll, of course, expect them to get a purple third sector because they will be the first driver who will have set a third and final sector here. But in towards the final corner for Tamas Gal, and up towards the line. Can they find the time? They can. It's a 30.5. A very strong offering to kick us off with Joe Murphy. A 31 flat, so half a second quicker than Hightaler, and the rest of everybody else finding their way through.
Hortensio matching Gal with a 30.5. Remember, Gal was a 30.488 in qualifying 2. That's the fastest lap time we've seen so far. Liam Stevens, 30.5. Slots into second, ahead of Hortensio, ahead of Tycho Hardy and Tony Heitele. Joris Krozen slowest of the times we've got so far on a 31 flat. Gabor Chonstos, 6th fastest, make that 7th as Julian Klaffenbort bumps him down a spot. And we wait to see whether Stacklet will be going again. I doubt it on that set of tyres. So 9 lap times on the board. Tamás Gal with a 30.500 has got provisional pole as things stand. A little bit slower than his Q2 time. Same for Angelo Hortensio as well, who is about half a tenth down on their personal best from qualifying 2. So will we be in the 30.4s you would expect? So will we reach the 30.3s? Well, we haven't got there yet, so we can't tell you.
That will be the question. Francesco Largo leaving the session. Of course, we will have that post-qualifying break to give our drivers an opportunity to get themselves into the new lobby, set up and ready, and us an opportunity to grab a drink as well. But let us know who you think is going to take pole position in the live chat down below. Will it be one of these 10 drivers, or are we going to play our favourite game of Where's My Lander?
Galoin with some excellent rage mate there, saying it's going to be Alex Santana on pole. Got to feel sorry for Alex, who was on the wrong side of misfortune, missing out on a spot in Q2. I'm going to say I think it's going to be this man that we're watching in the Ferrari. That's not quite the deep scarlet that we're used to, more of that lighter crimsony kind of red, similar to what Bernd Mailander will be driving, who we haven't seen just yet. So maybe Bernd didn't manage to make it through qualifying 2 and was knocked out in 17th. It'll be interesting to see if he takes his position up on the grid. But I'm going to go for Angelo Hortensio to take this one. Tamás Gal's very, very quick. Liam Stevens has come on really nicely in this qualifying session as well. Yeah, I'm going to go for Hortensio, maybe just to nick it.
Ooh, I'm going to go with... I mean, Tamás Gal feels like the easy pick here because they've been incredibly quick over the course of all 3 qualifying sessions. Can they try and find enough time in the 3rd and final? I think I'm going to go with Tamás Gal for my early predictions. We've got Angelo de Polman in chat from Jav. We've got other drivers as well being bounced around. I think Alex Santana not necessarily happy with the comments that are being made. Well, you know what? There's one easy way to fix that, and that's drive exactly 1/10th faster. No, 1,000th faster.
I'm not going to get involved. You're hitting a man when he's down, and that's not something that I can get behind.
Unless they're Argentinian.
Unless your name is Enzo Fernandez,
yeah,
and then I'm perfectly fine for the rage baiting to continue and do a stupid celebration as well when he puts his hands behind his ears. I bet there's some kind of really deep meaning for that now, and I've just offended his entire family, so I apologise if that is the case.
Hopefully not. Hopefully no bloodlines have been insulted today on this stream or in future.
He's not watching, don't worry.
You don't know that. It is 3 a.m. in Argentina, but you don't know they're not watching. They might really enjoy sim racing, and more specifically the Ventauri Pro Series, because who doesn't realistically enjoy this series? It is very close racing, up and down the field. And more predictions coming in. Tycho Hardy on pole, who's in 4th place at the moment, a 1:36.47. Would need to find just over a 10.5 improvement to try and take that, providing nobody else goes quicker, of course.
2nd place last week in the race, Tycho Hardy. We haven't got the winner from a week ago, Sergio Sobrino, and the man that finished 3rd, Luca Rapace, had just been eliminated in qualifying 2. So if we look at the form guide, is it going to be Tycho Hardy the favourite? Joris Krozen in Australia, fastest in all 3 qualifying sessions, has managed to squeeze through into Q3, but hasn't yet shown the pace that says he can challenge the likes of Gal, the likes of Stevens and Hortensio right at the sharp end. Will we be in the 30.4s, 30.3s? Maybe somebody pulls a rabbit out of the hat and somehow gets into the 30.2s. It will only remain to be seen, as once again, as it was for the first runs, it is Petr Stakelek who will be the first to attack this Chinese Grand Prix circuit for the final time in qualifying.
Let's see then, in towards the final corner for Petr and up towards turn 1. We'll see if they're able to try and commit to their line. They don't have enough time to go again. Should they feel the need to bail out of this run, which is going to be a very heavy bug wearing on the back of their mind because they know they've got no safety net at the moment. This is all or nothing for their final and first run of Q3.
It's a little bit different, isn't it, if you're comparing Q3 to maybe other qualifying sessions, because you're slowest at the moment anyway. You've really got absolutely nothing to lose. Just throw it out there, see what you can manage. Decent first sector, a 10th faster than he managed on the invalidated first run, 23.6 for Stakelek. Not fastest yet, though, but in and around the right kind of ballpark.
Looking at improvement in the first sector, of course, identical was the Joris Krozen they did on the invalidated run. To any time, we'll be promoting them slightly further forward as to where they want to be, in towards arguably one of the most tricky corners on this circuit. It can have a tendency to throw you out wide for opening the straight line mode and down towards the final right-hander. It was purple in game for Petter Stakelek, but I don't think so. It was only a personal best, according to our telemetry.
It's a really clumsy couple of corners, that double right-hander, or double left-hander, I should say, of turns 9 and turns 10. But barreling down the back straight for the last time. The checkered flag is now flying. And it will be Stakelek who will cross the line first to complete the session. No banker lap time on the board. This is it for Stakelek. Nice run through the hairpin of turn number 14. Got the car rotated, looked pretty hooked up on the exit as well. Invalidated on the inside last time, gets through 16 without any troubles, and up to the line, second fastest. Really good time there from Stakelek, gets himself provisionally onto the front row, but there are faster drivers still improving.
One of them, Angelo D'Ortenzio, purple in the middle sector, personal best in the first, and once again it all comes down to the third and final sector. The Scarlet Ferrari car making their way through the final corner. They'll open up the front and rear wings, a chance to the line. They go fastest, a 30.321, but it's not over yet. More times about to come your way. First by Joe Murphy.
Beat that is what D'Ortenzio says. Murphy to the line, third fastest, 30.5. We wait for Tamas Gal, who's improving and just misses out by 5 milliseconds. Can anyone challenge those two runaway leaders? Tycho Hardy to third in the 30.4s. Heitel a bit wobbly through the final corner. He's also in the 30.3s, 13 milliseconds away from pole position. Liam Stevens from 7th up to 4th. We wait for Klaffenborg and we wait for Chonstos to the line as Krozen 6th fastest. Last week's pole sitter won't complete it again. Klaffenborg 9th. Chonstos, I think, only in P10. And it was that top 3 that we were expecting, but it was just by the barest of margins, 5 milliseconds in the end for Angelo D'Ortenzio, taking it away from Tamas Gal and Tony Heitler with a good late lap.
Tell you what, our two predictions here, Tom, within 5,000ths of a second of one another. I don't think it could have been closer when it came down to actually trying to guess the driver that was going to take pole position here. But we'll run through those top 10. Of course, it was D'Ortenzio, Gal, Heitala, Stevens, Harney, Krozen, Murphy, Stakelek, Klaffenbach and Chonstos that will be your top 10 drivers for the race. And we can include everybody else in that top 22 as well that we saw in earlier qualifying sessions. But as we get ready to head over towards the race, we're going to hop to a very quick break so to get the lobby and everything else reset. And we will be right back. Do not go anywhere.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We've had our hydration break. We are refreshed and ready to go as we head into a 50% race at the Chinese Grand Prix circuit. Whether we'll have rain, the answer is a firm no, because it's a little bit bugged. Whether we'll have safety cars, the answer is no, because they're a little bit bugged. However, we'll continue to put on a show, as we saw last time out in Australia. I think we do need to talk strategy because, and this was mentioned a couple of times in the interviews that we had as well, obviously, it's going to be a one-stop race we would expect. Medium-hard seems to be the way to go forward rather than the hard-medium strategy. Whether that's the same for a higher tyre wear circuit like China, we'll have to wait and see. But the undercut as well did seem very powerful.
It did, and it's one that really has seemed to work inside of F1 26. The 26 regulations, I think, really promoting that style of racing. So we'll see how it goes. The overcut can work if you want to go long on a set of hard compound tyres. But again, there's a lot of fighting required to make your way back through the field. And one actually even more so when these regulations burn the battery like they do down that long back straight. So we'll really see, I think, a tale of two stories here today.
Yeah, track position important. That's why if you can get the undercut to work, you can jump yourself ahead of a number of drivers and get yourself in the box office seat. Overcast conditions, a lot of cloud cover, very dark as well. So the track temperature should be fairly low, you would expect. But no rain on the agenda. As far as we're aware, we have safety car turn off, but we still saw Bernd Mailander in qualifying, so anything's possible, right?
At least we got one appearance of him, you know. We're not going to see him in the race. We might have seen him in qualifying, and he likes to go for a little bit of adventure. Actually, I can see him just at the end of your picture. It might be a bit small on if you're watching on your phone or on a smaller monitor. Hold on, I'll put it full screen for you. You can see him just at the end of the pit lane, just below the tower. It's hard to kind of point, but right at the end of the pit carriage is that red safety car is just parked up, ready and waiting. Should he ever be required out, but unfortunately Race Control have taken their afternoon siesta, so there will be no safety cars.
Yes, as we get ready to go, not the longest of runs down into turn one, but a hell of a lot of carnage can unfold. It's D'Ortenzio versus Gal, and we're racing for 28 laps here at the Chinese Grand Prix. Not the best of starts from the Cadillac on the front row. Good one from Crozen in the mid-pack, swooping over, now tackling the second Aston Martin of Liam Stevens into the snail section. Contact there between Heitler and Gal, leaves the Cadillac off kilter. There's a Haas car, I think it was Joris Crozen sideways as well. A lot of ghosting and desyncing going on as we head through turn number 4 with D'Ortenzio still leading the way. Third wide in the background. I wonder if there was a little bit of front wing. Carbon fibre confetti thrown up as a lot of late braking moves. And Alpine very dangerous on the brakes. I think that's Francesco Largo into turn number 6. D'Ortenzio still clear out in front. But what a cluster we've got in the midfield.
Really looking feisty in the early stages here. 2 wide again, a little bit of lag, seeing 3 wide once again through the second sector as more cars trying to find their way through. Again 3 wide as they go 2x2 as well. Nobody can quite figure out which way they want to go. Santana and Alves, both Williams, scrapping it out as that's I believe Francesco Largo again saving the car to the best of their abilities. They send it down the inside to the tight left-hander. 2x2 they run. We still have Noah's Ark here in China. They can't quite try and find a gap for themselves. It's Lucas Beisner going alongside Francesco Largo on towards the long run down towards the final few corners.
D'Ortenzio still in the lead, but Gal closing, gaining all the time, but bails out of that one. Here comes the lifting and coasting. The 2 Aston Martins still in 3rd and 4th. Joris Crozer with a look to the inside of his teammate and of Joe Murphy in the Audi, battling away with Klaffenburg for 6th and 7th respectively. Beisner on the move, pushing Largo down the spot. Alves still getting stuck in this time at the expense of Tudor Presscan as they trade blows. Wide goes the Ferrari through the final corner, and there is another bit of front wing thrown up.
Trying to figure out who that belongs to. I'm sure we'll see in the next few moments. The Alpine of Francesco Largo again just holding steady in the opening few sectors, in the opening few corners, trying to do the best they can to figure out their opponents around them. Lucas Bessner as well, down in 14th place, and trying to just balance. It's a balancing act, isn't it, in these opening few stages where you've just got to attack but defend but attack, and you've got to do that multiple times over.
Someone smashed through the polystyrene board as well, through the runoff out of the final corner. So must have been some dramas going on around there, as that's Alves applying the blowtorch to Presscan. The other Williams of Santana under pressure. Klaffenburg battling away through turn 7, turns 8, and up towards turn 9 with Tycho Hardy. Hardy on the inside. Klaffenburg will try and get the cutback, but it's a very difficult place to try and pull off an overtaking manoeuvre. And Hardy will, for the time being, hold on to position number 5. Hold that thought. Down the inside we look once again with Klaffenburg into turn number 11. Inside turns to the outside, but he has to get out of that one with Joe Murphy and Joris Crozen very close behind as well, spotting a gap to slide it down the inside of 13. Little bit of a wobble for Klaffenburg, puts pay to that assault.
Tycho Hardy does well to get past Klaffenbach there on the long run down towards the final few corners. Tyres are on your screen at the moment. Medium tyres for all but 3 of the pack. Peter, Simon Varso and Tom Roberts opting for the hard compounded tyres for the opening stages of this race. More battles happening in towards the hairpin further back as well. The Audi car of Joe Murphy looking very racy in the opening stages of this race so far. Off goes wide. Francesco Largo through the final corner, should I say, and still holds on to 13th place. Here comes once again Julian Klaffenbach, trying to make moves on Tycho Hardy in towards the opening snail section. Again, unsuccessful.
The other Haas trying to put one over on Joe Murphy. Luca Rapassa smelling blood potentially as Crozen was offline through the snail section. Larry Tilke right in the thick of the scrap as well. Hardy was on the offensive going into the hairpin. Tried it to the outside of Liam Stevens unsuccessfully. And back on the defensive with Julian Klaffenbach trying it into turn number 1. Bit more contact, as you can see, the confetti thrown up. Stakelek into the back of Tilke. This is Pressakan battling away with Nelson Alves, who's given a helping hand off the road. Through goes Kakeni as well to P19. Alves down a couple of spots in the Williams to P20. Bowman Roberts just the 2 cars behind as Kakeni now puts one over onto the Pressakan and into the back of the McLaren goes Alves.
Not the early stages of contact you want to see. Keep an eye on Joris Crozen, who is trying to make moves here on Joe Murphy in towards the tight left-hander. They'll try and go too wide. The Haas car sends it down the inside. Simple move, but all is said and done a little bit wide from Joe Murphy. That could open up the opportunity for Luca Rapassa to try and say something about getting in towards the top 8 here as they run towards the long back straight, and the McLaren looking very racy as well. Larry Tilke wanting to join them for company. What has happened further back as Tom Roberts has got the better of both Trude Presscan and Nelson Alves as well. They run 3 wide towards the final few corners. To join them as well, Conrad Bohm, who looks a little bit out of place here.
Roberts to the back, picking up the wooden spoon. Alves and Pressakan continue to knock 10 bells out of each other as there's more contact this time. The squeeze employed. Roberts needs to try and get out of the way of the tussling pair into the final corner. You can see big damage there for Pressakan, missing the entire right-hand side of the front wing as Alves, both of them with the straight line mode. One of them won't have the blue boost mode. You'd imagine that's Alves in the Williams. Bohm just up the road now has managed to drop them by a second and a half. Roberts to the inside. This is for last place, everybody, but fighting like it means absolutely everything. The McLaren pushed down into P22, keeps his nose in it through turn number 2, but it is Tom Roberts that gets through and pushes Pressakan down into last. Nelson Alves next on the hit list, but a second and a half now away from the main pack, who are still all connected, first down to 19.
Everyone on the hard tyres doing well to stay within the status quo here. We'll remind you of those as we make our way through the rest of the race. If you missed them slightly earlier on, you will get a refresher. But all but 3 drivers opting onto a set of the mediums for the opening race starts. So a few drivers giving themselves a bit of work to do when we do get to the latter stages of this race, but maybe giving themselves somewhat of an advantage as well when we get into the latter stages of this Chinese Grand Prix. We watch with Julian Klaffenbach here on the back of Tycho Hardy. They make their way down once again towards the longest straight on this circuit and potentially an overtaking spot, but I don't think we're going to see many overtakes in this opening stage here, Tom. They'll try and play the game. They'll be sensible in this opening stage, and as soon as they pit onto brand new tyres, that is when we'll start to see most of the action unfold.
Klaffenbach clearly not heeding your advice there. Same for Luca Rapassa. Bad qualifying, trying to make up for it in the race. Around the outside of Joe Murphy into the final corner. The Audi has that one covered for the time being. The 2 Haas cars just up the road. Crozen a little bit detached from the back of Klaffenbach, who continues to apply the blowtorch to the Racing Bulls car of Tycho Hardy. Out in front, Angelo D'Ortenzio still comfortable, half a second in his back pocket over Tanash Gal ahead of the 2 Aston Martins. Pressakan retires. That is in the pit lane. We do not need to worry about a safety car, and we are going to continue with just 21 runners now. Pressakan the first to take an early shower. Not good news for the Papaya squadron.
Not one they'd like to see, of course, for Rapassa, their teammate, still on that recovery drive. They started down in 11th place. They've made 2 places in the opening 5 laps of this Grand Prix so far. They have got Joe Murphy for company just in front of them, beating their better by just about 0.2 of a second, give or take a few thousandths. A little bit of contact there. They made their way through the second sector, but I think this just shows that Rapassa is really trying to push the limits to see what they can try and achieve.
And we saw this last week in Australia as well. Rapassa qualified P8 and worked their way through the pack with some daring, some bullshit, and some very box office and lively and aggressive and successful overtaking manoeuvres to work his way through the field and get himself into the lead fight. Should have finished second at worst, but battery mismanagement going on to the last lap cost him a place to Tycho Hardy, had to settle for third in the end. tucking into the 6th, which is much more powerful in these cars than the ground effect ones. We have a little look to the inside, but it's actually Joe Murphy who is spooked into the braking zone there, driving in his mirrors, locks the rear tyres and invites the pressure from Luca Rapassa to the outside. Big squeeze as the McLaren's onto the grass, and Rapassa, having the door slammed in his face, now jumps off the circuit. He's slightly deep into the final corner. I don't think he'll be too enamoured by that, and suddenly has to go on the defensive with Larry Tulke in the Red Bull, charging around the outside into the Snell section of turn 1, keeping it pinned the long way round for Larry Tulke. Eventually, if he can keep a foothold in the battle, we'll get the inside into turns 2 through 3 and 4 as well. Bit of tyre-to-tyre contact. Rapassa now with the cold shoulder on the outside. Can he keep it around the outside through turn 4? Still eyeball to eyeball in the battle for 9th and 10th position. We head down to turn 6 with Rapassa on the inside. Bit of a bump from the Audi of Stakelek behind, a slide and a bit of contact again, this time for Tulke. Now slamming the door is Rapassa ahead of the Red Bull, who just, with razor blades on his elbows, keeps the Red Bull behind.
I think there'll be a lot of questions being asked by the McLaren team in favour of Joe Murphy and explaining and wanting answers to what exactly happened earlier on in the exit, or the entry, should I say, to that final corner. Not, well, almost certainly not left at least a car's width as they made their way in towards that final corner. So I think that may be a stewards inquiry that we see slightly later on in the day. We still right on board with Julian Klaffenbach, who's on the back of Tycho Hardy, trying to get his way up to 5th place. The yellow flag's finally clear, but Nelson Alves is at stranded car at the exit of the first few corners. It is still the status quo. It's Tortenzio from Gall from Haidala, your top 3 at the moment, looking to send a move towards from Klaffenbach rather. Hardy, I think, as well, trying to line one up or go defensive. And Klaffenbach in so looked maybe to send a move on Liam Stevens, but no moves made this time around. Too wide, they go through the final corner. Very wobbly from Klaffenbach there as he tried to hold the inside line. He loses the place to his teammate Joris Krozen, but they might try and work together now in towards the opening of lap 7.
Could say master of his own downfall a little bit there. Not a regulation overtaking point into the final corner. Yes, he had the overspeed, he had the run on Tycho Hardy, but very difficult to get 2 cars side by side through that final corner. Both of them in the end falling off the road. And Klaffenbach coming up second best in that altercation, allowing the other half of Joris Krozen to file on through. Angelo D'Ortenzo still very comfortable out in the lead of this race. Tamas Gall has been fairly happy to sit at around 6 or 7 tenths of a second off the back of the Scarlet Ferrari, just sitting there and spectating and watching and playing the waiting game with the 2 Aston Martins in formation just behind. And like we've seen, Tycho Hardy just hovering in the middle of the road, going into the hairpin on the last couple of laps to force Klaffenbach into making a decision. Do you dive it to the inside? Do you go the long way around and try and force the issue there? Or do you just hover and wait behind? Klaffenbach went for the jugular into the final corner after he got the run, and he learned what happened.
He certainly did, and learned the hard way what sometimes happens if you make a mistake or even open yourself up just a little bit too much in the stages of this race. We approach a quarter race distance already here in the Chinese Grand Prix, and that has come so quick and unexpected, as we do see Petter there on the back of Larry Tulke in towards the hairpin, wanting to try and set up a move. They were in the slipstream in the groove, send a move to the inside. They'll have to go a little bit brave, and that's Luca Rapassa getting caught up in the carnage once again. Maybe a move that has nothing to do with him, and he does get tied up in the action, but it is Petter that does get the better of Larry Tulke into 10th place. Even if Luca Rapassa won't say that is the cleanest move on the calendar, as the McLaren driver once again in the wars, not by his own means.
Can't believe there's going to be no damage for either of those cars there. Massive whack into the side of Rapassa, into the braking zone of 14. You can see how much it caught him by surprise. He had to apply an armful of opposite lock to keep it pointing in the right direction. Lost a little bit of time to Joe Murphy, who in turn has actually lost a lot of time to the 2 Haas cars just up the road. So the Audi may be under a little bit of pressure to cling onto the coattails of the leading group of 7. Stakelek getting the better of Tulke at the end of the previous act, can now try and apply the pressure to Luca Rapassa. Used to try and recompose himself after getting a clout from behind. Nothing to do with his own driving. And get himself back up onto the haunches of Joe Murphy. Francesco Lago, we also saw wide for I think the 3rd or 4th time through the final corner as well. And Tamas Gall may be under a little bit of pressure here also. 8 tenths off the back of Angelo D'Ortenzio. And Tony Heitler looking fairly racy just behind the Cadillac.
Looking very impressive. Both Aston Martins actually coming here today and looking incredibly impressive, both in qualifying and race trim. The front 6, should I say, are unchanged from their qualifying orders, as we do see both Aston Martins 3rd and 4th respectively looking to score some good points. Of course, it is a team's championship after all, and the drivers are there as well to score points for their own right. So Haidala and Stevens may not want to try and play the team game when we get to the latter stages, maybe laps 25 onwards. And we do see more battles up and down the field. Liam Stevens and Tony Hightower and others, Tycho Hardy, Julian Claffenbach, to name a few, in towards pit road then. For the first time this afternoon, the undercut has been, well, thrown under.
And there was a lot of speed carried into that pit lane. Tycho Hardy was so wide, using all of the road that was out there. This was 2007. He might have found himself sliding into the gravel Lewis Hamilton style. But as it is, continues on their way. The first three to pull the trigger. Hightower, Hardy and Claffenbach. We saw how strong the undercut worked last week for Sergio Sobrino. As we see jumping over the white line there, as you only get a warning, or I don't even think you get a warning in the game, which is annoying because that's not how it is in real life, as you will notice. So D'Ortenzio from Gal, now from Stevens. Crozen a second off the back of the Aston Martin. Joe Murphy 1.3 seconds off the back of Crozen. This is Conrad Bohm under pressure through the middle sector with the second Racing Bulls of Tom Roberts all over the rear wing of that Silver Arrows. And they're a couple of seconds off the back of the next group of cars, which has Marcel Paps right at the tail of the snake.
Give me interesting to see how that undercut runs. Tom Roberts does get the better of Conrad Bowman towards 15th place then. The exit of that second sector can come a knocking, but albeit in their own right, 2 seconds off the back of Marcel Paps that you mentioned slightly earlier. So Thomas Cockney in no man's land, so to speak, 2 seconds off the back of Bowman, or another 10 seconds back to Tony Hightower. So it doesn't quite know which way is forwards, which way is backwards, like a diver stuck at sea. Not sure which way is up, which way is down, but D'Ortenzio and Gal both into the pits, albeit both being creative with those pit entry track limits and in towards the slow zone, shall we say. Both cars do get the required pit limiter on, and we'll see what tyres they go on to.
I don't think D'Ortenzio was intending to go that wide. Got a bit of a bump and run and a helping hand from Tamas Gal, who was pretty much pushing him there through the pit lane entry. Rapassa up to P3, by the way, at the expense of Joe Murphy. That's through turns 1 and 2. Both Audis potentially trying to get involved with the McLaren of Rapassa, who's getting out of the sandwich. Watch for Stakelek, who's trying to put one over on his teammate as well. And that is daylight robbery potentially as well into turn 6, because Stakelek to the inside. I don't think he's quite got the overspeed to challenge Rapassa, but he does mug off his teammate and push Murphy down a second spot in the first sector.
Just an interesting thing to note here further back, the overcut has worked for Angelo D'Ortenzio. They've managed to stay ahead of Tamas Gal, Tony Hightower. I say that Tamas Gal comes at him in towards that second sector. The Ferrari had his pocket pinched. Tycho Hardy, Tony Hightower as well swapping positions. So Tycho Hardy up to 18th, Julian Claffenbach, now the net race, well, loser essentially down in 20th place, but they're not going to let any of this fly as Claffenbach does get the better of Tony Hightower. They'll look to hold the inside line. The Aston Martin does so, and the Haas car still wanting to try that outside line too wide through a very tight corner, as both Hightower and Claffenbach not giving each other an inch.
Not willing to back down. The Aston Martin on the inside. That'll turn to the outside as Rapassa drops back behind the Audi, this time of Stakelek. Looks like Claffenbach with the inside of the long turn 13 will take position 19 for the time being. And I'm amazed as well at how tentative and how passive Angelo D'Ortenzio was into the braking zone of turn number 6. No confidence whatsoever as Rapassa almost hits the wall there coming into the pit lane. I think D'Ortenzio potentially on the defensive again, because Tycho Hardy's right there with the Ferrari also. So Rapassa into the pit. 6 drivers now have made their one and only stop of the race so far. Leaves Liam Stevens out there a second ahead of Joris Crozen. Here are the 5 pit stoppers so far. And where will Luca Rapassa be spat out? You would imagine comfortably at the back of this train, because he wasn't with these cars when they made their stops.
Yeah, you can see that on the track map at the bottom right-hand side. Nearly 3 seconds, even closer to probably 4 seconds by the time he does peel out of pit road. 3.1 then is the deficit up to Tony Hightower. So Luca Rapassa once again with work to do from today's endeavours. Of course, started down in 9th, had a good, started down in 11th from qualifying, had a good draw through the field for the majority of the race, and has got to do it all again here should he want to try and stay within the overtaking opportunities from the rest of the field that have made their pit stops. Tamas Gal, your net race leader at the moment, who has opted onto a set of the hard compound tyres. You know what, a good time right now to remind you what tyres everybody is on here. So Tamas Gal from D'Ortenzio, everyone further down there is on hard tyres, followed by Tom Roberts, Stephen Vasso and Petr Stachulek as well. Everybody else on the mediums.
This medium, not a particularly favourable race tyre for the majority of the leaders. 5 of the top 6 in that opening stint all have jumped off the mediums already, going for that undercut. Leaves Liam Stevens out there. The one outlier of the lead group was in P4 in the opening salvos. The Aston Martin continues to soldier on with Joris Kroes. The two Audis, third and fourth. Into the pits comes one of them. That's Joe Murphy. Larry Tolkien, where are you going? Getting into Narni as we go into the pit lane there, going and using all of the runoff area on the outside as they're joined in the pit lane by Francesco Largo in the Alpine just behind them. As we return our attention, you would expect to the net race leaders who are just cutting the beans past them now. Tamas Gaut with the fastest lap of the race, looking more confident on these hard compound tyres compared to D'Ortenzio, who looked like, on the mediums, for all money, had it absolutely under control.
He did, for the most part, because there's some questionable track limit entries here for pit road, and again, a benefit with inside of F125, but you can make those extreme pit entries. The white line's more of a suggestion, especially here in China, so as long as drivers don't hit the wall or, thankfully the gravel's been removed. Lewis Hamilton's worst nightmare back from the early noughties, or sorry, late noughties, should I say, and drivers don't have to face that today, thankfully. But of course, that wall does come at you rather thick and fast if you misjudge your approach speed in towards pit road here in China. But up at the front, Liam Stevens has got a comfortable lead over Joris Kroes, 1.2 seconds and some change, and will be exempt essentially from drivers behind him gaining that overtake mode, which is very beneficial around here in China.
Definitely, especially with this long back straight, that if you can try and get some oversteer. We can see in the background there, Steven Varzo pulling out, taking 5th place off the hands of Lucas Beisner. Neither driver has made a pit stop. Just behind them as well, Alex Santana, who's been in the wars, battling away with Marcel Paps, who locks up the front tyres and jumps straight out of the way. Misses his braking point by an absolute country mile as Joris Kroes into the pits. And that is Tamas Gal getting ahead of his teammate, putting a car, crucially, between himself and Angelo D'Ortenzio. Going to push the Ferrari backwards a little bit, make him work hard for it. He's going to have to go the long way around into the final corner. Is Kilkenny into the pits? Yes, he does. Lucky that D'Ortenzio wasn't caught out by that one. Could have been a nasty one. As Tamas Gal again with the fastest laps, taken away immediately, though, by the Ferrari of D'Ortenzio. And there's Luca Ripassa in the background, stealing it away. I think all of those lap times separated by just half a tenth.
Very, very close in terms of lap time up and down that field. And of course, Tamas Gal now finds himself in 9th place, so 8 and upwards are still yet to make their pit stop. 5 of those drivers on the medium compounded tyres, everybody else on the hard compounds to make their way through the opening 12 and or 13 laps of this race. We as expected, everybody that has made the pit stop so far has opted on to a set of the hard compounded tyres to see their race out with about 16 laps to go here in China. Where do you expect the hard tyres to make their early stops? I'd make an early guess, if memory serves here. Roughly around lap 19, lap 20 would be my early guesses.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe 18, give yourself a 10-lap run on those mediums. Liam Stevens still out there on his medium tyres, himself and Stakelek in particular, giving themselves a massive tyre offset compared to their main rivals who they were fighting. The problem is, and we've spoken about it, track position is very important, as that's a mistake from Liam Stevens on the old tyres. Commentator's curse as he lights it up on the exit as well. Way too deep into turn 14, taking a trip off the road, and I think is now going to lay those medium tyres to rest, carrying all the speed into the pit lane as Stakelek continues on with those hard compound tyres. Steven Varzo as well, soldiering on. Yellow flag is out. I think that's Tamas Kilkenny, who is, well, he's had a nose job there, missing the entire front end. What has gone on there? Witchcraft.
This is Cadillac's new aerodynamic department, having either budget issues or having the best genius inventions in all of Formula One. We see a fight here between Marcel Paps and Tom Roberts as Paps sent spinning around, contact between the sister teammates, and Marcel's day after locking up in towards the hairpin. Now that contact that sent him spinning around right into the path of Tamas Gal. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an early retirement from Marcel Paps. I think it's been a bad day at the office, should we say.
Qualified last, so hasn't exactly been a favourable trip to China, as now the leaders are trying to take chunks out of him. Still yet to stop. Through goes Gal. Through goes D'Ortenzio. Now a ride upon the haunches of the Cadillac. That just little interlude with the Red Bull in the way has brought the Ferrari right back into the fray. Tycho Hardy, good move down the inside. Opportunistic into turn 8. Clinical stuff from Klaffenborg as well. And he's not finished there. Down the inside into turn number 9. Just trying to steal a march on Tycho Hardy, who slams the door through 10 and puts Klaffenborg on the back foot. As Tony Heitler now disposes of the Red Bull of Marcel Paps. That was very fun racing there, wasn't it? Hardy, good move. Klaffenborg, good move. And then Klaffenborg trying to catch Hardy by surprise. Couldn't quite make it work, though.
Tamas Gal, a little bit comfortable up in the front 4 years, still yet to pit. The only one of those drivers still in the medium compound tyres is Conrad Bohm, who's running in 4th place at the moment. Roberts, Varso and Stashilek up in the 1st place are all on hard tyres. We've mentioned that several times over the course of this broadcast so far, but just keeping everyone up to date with the tyres to make sure nobody goes lonely. Here comes Conrad Bohm in towards pit road. Latest of the medium runners, incredibly close to that pit entry wall. Does very well to avoid it. And we do see Marcel Paps in as well, as to be expected for the Red Bull Racing outfit. The last 2 of the mediums now getting themselves a fresh set of rubber. And there we go, Marcel Paps retiring from the race. I think that was to be expected, wasn't it?
Yeah, not been brilliant, unfortunately, for Marcel. It's the 3rd driver alongside Nelson Alves and Tudor Pressacan to retire from this race. It's still Stakelek leading the way, ahead of Varso and Roberts. Top 3 yet to box. Liam Stevens is about 2.5 seconds off the back of Luca Ripassa, who is a further 2.5 off the back of the main leading train. So he's got about 4.5 seconds, Liam Stevens, to try and pull back with, on average, a 5-lap tyre offset compared to the drivers that he's going to be racing. And that'll be a really interesting one to try and see how that one unfolds.
I think a lot of stories will be coming out of this race, maybe a lot of stewards' inquiries as well. We unfortunately don't get to see the tickets. I'd love to be able to see what the drivers are discussing. We just get to see the outcomes of it. And of course, last time out in Australia, a lot of them were just penalty removals, so no further, well, no major action to be taken against any drivers. A few changes, and as we head to the rest of the calendar, lots more could happen and probably will happen with more contact as drivers get more familiar and more comfortable racing not only these regulations but their fellow drivers around them, of course, because the best racing that you do often see, not only inside of F1 but in other sims and simcades as well, is people that you know, because if you can anticipate what they're going to do, that is where the good racing happens. Liam Stevens taking advantage of Larry Tukey moving slowly in towards the hairpin and gets the move done around the outside in what was a spectacular move for the Aston Martin car, promoting themselves up to 12th place.
I think that was actually Stevens on the defensive potentially from Larry Tulke, who launched it around the outside, but then found himself falling off the road. Whether that was through Liam Stevens and a bit of a bump and run as they tangled through turn 14, only they will know at this stage. But they continue in the formation with Joe Murphy ahead of the Aston Martin, the Red Bull, and then Francesco Largo at the back of this little quartet, nearly 3 seconds ahead of Gabor Chonstos, who is the only driver at this stage with a penalty. As this is Tamas Gao now caught up behind Tom Roberts, yet to stop in this race, and once again the leaders are going to find themselves converging on each other. Got to keep your wits about you here. Close quarters racing, really going to get bunched up. Don't want to be too passive, otherwise D'Ortenzio might just smell a little bit of blood in the Scarlet Fry to try and pull a fast one on Tamas Gao.
It's looking that way, and here comes Tamas Gao once again, trying to maybe send a move in towards the 3rd and final sector. Tom Roberts is looking very vulnerable right now, because you can see on the track map the likes of 1st and 2nd place, if they've, well, checked out and said goodbye. Tom Roberts acting as somewhat a blocker to the rest of the hard compound tyre runners as they make their way down towards the hairpin once again. For lap 16 of 28, here comes Tamas Gao, though, making the move past. Angelo D'Ortenzio wants to follow them through. The extra straight line speed on both the Cadillac and the Scuderia Ferrari car is beneficial as they promote themselves to 3rd and 4th place. And the charge to try and chase those who started on the hard compound tyres, well, that's well and truly on.
or Tycho Hardy, I should say, will now be asking his teammate to get the hell out of the way. Klaffenborg and Heitler arriving on the scene. Crozer within 1 second, or just dipping above 1 second. Repassa there as well. Tycho Hardy thought about the late lunge into turn 1. Now trying to spy a gap to the inside of turn 2, making space where it wasn't available, putting his nose in a place it wasn't welcome. Now around the outside through 3, does get past Roberts, and Klaffenborg says, thank you very much, I'll have a piece of the action as well. And I think Tony Heitler will be on the scene as well, on the button, to try and keep on tabs with Hardy and with Klaffenborg. Into turn 6 we go with the Aston Martin to the inside, and Tom Roberts, I think, going to be given the cold shoulder, now having to deal with Joris Krozen, who's arriving at the back.
In a bit of sticky situation is Tom Roberts, knowing that the further he falls down this field at the moment, the worse he's going to be when he bolts on a set of the medium compounder tyres. And you're right that Tycho Hardy would have been hoping, praying, maybe even begging that his teammate did get out of the way. It wasn't to be, though. In this situation, he had to force a move down the inside of turn 1 in quite possibly the biggest parting of the Red Sea move that I think I've seen inside of F1 sim racing for the longest time. It was a brave send, but he did manage to get the gap opened up to allow his V-carb to make the move through, and Klaffenbach just said, wham bam, thank you ma'am, and followed on through with the V-carb.
Use a Martin Brundle favourite. Ambition ahead of adhesion. As that is a big squeeze applied by Tony Heitler. Joris Krozen on the offensive here. Bit of contact, trying to force his way to the inside into 14. Both drivers lock up, but as Tony Heitler exits stage left on the outside, bade adieu, rolls out the red carpet as he was too late on the brakes, and through goes Crozen. Join his teammate now inside the top 7, as that is criminal from Stakelek. Was in a good position, but speeding in the pits, that 10-second penalty is going to give you absolutely zero chance of staying inside the top 10, staying inside the top 15 point score, as you would imagine, because the safety car is turned off. And also, need to mention this as well, the battles between the Racing Bulls on the previous lap has allowed Gal and Dortenzio to put a little bit of breathing space between himself and that chasing peloton.
1.3 seconds to be exact, yellow flags. In that the first section, the opening few corners, I think that was just maybe the Williams going steady, or maybe Petter as well in the Audi as well. We do see up at the front, like you said, Tamas Gal and Andre Dortenzio having a good bit of breathing room, but both Haas cars might try and work together here. Julian Klaffenbach and Joris Kroes, and of course know each other well from racing together inside of F1 Sim Racing World Championships, and Klaffenbach on the back of Tycho Hardy wanting to try and dispatch him. Of course, all of those drivers are technically on the lead lap. They've all made their mandatory pit stop, a little bit ajar from one another. Crozen has the best tyres out of this entire field, only done 6 laps on them so far. So if anyone's races to win here, it could be on board with Crozen if they can manage the tyres well in the last 10 laps of this race.
And the problem for Hardy as well is because he's a second and a half off the back of the leaders, doesn't have the blue boost mode. As ducking and weaving goes Klaffenbach, chooses the right-hand side, chooses the inside into turn 14. Luca Rapassa as well. Late braking move down the inside of Tony Heitler. Bit of a rugby tackle as they go through the braking zone of 14. Contact not once but twice. Now into the final corner is Crozen down the inside of Tycho Hardy, who's been mugged twice by the 2 Haas cars. From 3rd down to P5 for the Racing Bull. Dortenzio, by the way, for the first time, down the inside of turn number 1, kicking off as we enter the last 10 laps. Now the lead changes hands for the first time since the pit stops. Gal relegated back down to 2nd on the road. Then come the 2 Haas cars, a second and a half back down the road, and Heitler holding off Rapassa for the time being too.
Tom Roberts, the last of our drivers to make his way in towards pit road, then was opting for a set of hard tyres going on to Tom Roberts' car. Surely there's a mistake here. Hard.
Not good news, because that is, you're going to have to stop again if you're unsure of the rules. There's the nose job still on the front of Tamas Kilkenny's car. If Cadillac are trying that, maybe Aston Martin wants to give it a go in real life F1 as well. And they're quite far detached at the back of the pack, so clearly the new front wing weight reduction upgrade not providing the help there for Tamas Kilkenny. 11 seconds off the back of Bone.
I'm curious what Tom Roberts is doing here. Unless that was a complete accident to put on another set of the hard tyres, but you see how far off the back of the pack he is. I don't know how he's going to be able to get back into it unless he's just going for the minimal points that you can score for finishing where they do finish. Joris Krozen on the back of their teammate Julian Klaffenbach down towards the hairpin. They run alongside and do make the move past. Beautiful bit of teamwork between the 2 drivers. Tony Heitler as well trying a very similar thing. Luca Rapassa did last time around, sent it down the inside towards the hairpin. The Aston Martin this time around does make a clean move and back up to 6th place.
Rapassa unable to make the progress here that he would be liking to manage, and he won't be liking seeing Dortenzio and Gal with a little bit of breathing room out in front. Liam Stevens' watch, by the way, has the freshest tyres of anybody on the hards at the moment. Just a second and a half now, less than, off the back of the secondary chasing group. As Stakelek with the fastest lap of the race, not going to matter with a 10-second penalty. No chance realistically of scoring points unless we see quite a few retirements in the closing stages. Kilkenny and Roberts out of it. Varza and Bohm a little bit detached as well, so maybe 1 point potentially on offer for Stakelek despite the 10-second time penalty. 1.3 seconds now the gap between Gal and Crozen, who, like you mentioned, out of the top 7, Crozen with the freshest tyres. Can he try and use that to his advantage with 8 laps to go?
Just a reminder of what everybody's tyres are on your screens. The closest competitor, of course, Liam Stevens, only done 6 laps on the set of the hard compound tyres and is within the overtake mode of the top 3. Joris Krozen has got a gap to try and break down, but is doing so successfully over the course of the last few laps. Last time around, 9/10 of a second quicker than Tamas Gal as we entered onto lap 20 of 28. We've got 9 laps to go, make it 8.5 as we make our way on towards the long back straights. The option to try and go long has proved beneficial for a few drivers, the likes of Crozen, who now has and will have fresher tyres for the last in Luca Rapassa, practically pushing Tony Heitler down towards the hairpin. Fakes left, goes right, sends it late down in towards the hairpin, and once again favouring that inside line in towards one of the tightest corners of the circuit. Gets it done fairly, and Tony Heitler will have to go back to the drawing board in terms of defence.
Good driving, good salesman as well as he sells the dummy Tony Heitler. Put in a pack there by Luca Rapassa as he finds himself falling now into the clutches of his teammate who does have a significant tyre advantage. We're looking at Joris Krozen. We're looking at Liam Stevens with the best tyres in this lead group of 8 cars. Larry Tulke also up to 9th place at the expense of Joe Murphy in the Audi. Francesco Largo right on the train of that little trio 2. Lead group of 8 cars. We have all converged on each other once more as Joris Kroes has moved to the front of the secondary group and brought everybody along with him up to D'Ortenzio and Gal once again.
Looking close up in this top pack. Everybody in the top 8 separated by less than a second. Tom Roberts heeling into pit road then. And there we go. There comes the retirement after 2 laps on a second set of hard compound tyres, which was pretty much to be expected in the latter stages of this race. And I'm not quite sure what the strategy the VCAR driver might have been going for, but it certainly wasn't one that was ever going to play ball here this afternoon. Tamas Gal still on the back of Andre D'Ortenzio. Joris Kroes will join them, still with freshest eye, but Julian Klaffenbach might be the aid or the hindrance that he doesn't know he needs.
Look at Krozen, closer to Gal than Gal has been to D'Ortenzio. Is this the moment potentially for Krozen to try and make an impression? Gal just moving around in the middle of the circuit, trying to weave and put Krozen off, make sure he doesn't make that dive bomb move into turn 14. He's trying to off-put the Haas behind and saying, mate, not for the time being, not coming down the inside here. For love nor money, as we start what I think is lap 22.
Yes.
With Angelo D'Ortenzio. Still leading the way in the Ferrari, ahead of Gal and the 2 Haas cars. Tycho Hardy a little bit further back, just starting to stretch their legs, perhaps this lead group, because Hardy's dropped a bit off the back of Klaffenbach, and Rapassa struggling to clear onto the coattails of the Racing Bulls car in front, with 2 feisty-looking Aston Martins very much in the fray as well.
It's looking close up and down the field, and it is anybody's guess as to which way this is going to go. Can D'Ortenzio hold off on the last 7 laps of racing? Can Gal maybe try and send a move forward to Joris Krozen with the freshest tyres of this entire pack, maybe make an impression in the latter stages of this race? All will be answered, of course, in 6.5 laps' time. The Shanghai International Circuit has been one that quite often will give us a surprise winner. It's been run by a Ferrari in the sprint race, at least a couple of years ago, back when Lewis Hamilton got his first technical win for Ferrari, and that's what Andre D'Ortenzio looking to do here this afternoon as well, in the first proper win in the Ventauri Pro Series.
Oldest team in Formula 1 in the lead. Newest team in Formula 1 in second with the Cadillac of Tamas Gal, but once again under significant pressure from their American counterpart. Cadillac versus Haas. Joris Krozen closer this time than he was a lap ago. Has to go defensive earlier down the straight, does Gal, but lifting off is Krozen once again. Doesn't fancy it to the outside despite the closing speed into the braking zone, and remains in 3rd position at the start, or will be in 3rd position at the start of lap 23. Klaffenbach still watching and waiting behind. Hardy, Rapassa, Stevens and Heitler still in this lead train. I think Rapassa with a poor run out of the final corner, putting him under pressure as Stevens was close to the back of Rapassa. The 2 Aston Martin drivers have traded blows on the previous lap. Heitler down to 8, Stevens up to 7th. Now applying the blowtorch to the McLaren of Rapassa.
All very close, and again I think it's going to be like this until we get maybe until lap 25, and that's when the elbows are really going to start to begin to fly. Liam Stevens here on the back of Luke Rapassa sends a move down the inside to the tight right-hander. I think just giving Rapassa a taste of his own medicine once again. We saw a very similar move with the hairpin a couple of laps ago, and Luke Rapassa wants to try and reply as best they can. Here comes Joris Krozen though, trying to send a move on Tamas Gal in towards the right-hander. They'll get the move done. Joris Krozen, spectacular. And they get past the newest team in Formula 1, Tamas Gal, who was in the lead of this race for many laps, now finds himself playing 3rd fiddle as Joris Krozen goes on the charge of D'Ortenzio.
And you're thinking more if you're Tamas Gal about potentially falling out of the podium places than trying to get back into the lead fight with D'Ortenzio, as the gap between the Ferrari and the Haas extending up towards 9/10 of a second, but some air is going to be burnt by the Haas of Krozen. Move back up onto the haunches of the Ferrari you would expect, as there is a car. Is that just up the road? No, we were on board with Tamas Gal, weren't we? I thought
Yes.
There was a lap car in the way going down into the hairpin. So Ferrari, Haas, Cadillac, Haas, Racing Bulls, your top 5. Krozen with the freshest tyres of everybody with the exception of Liam Stevens, who's still buried in that pack in position number 6, despite getting past Rapasa on the previous tour. We have 5 laps to go. Crozen was the pole sitter in Australia, was fastest in all 3 qualifying sessions, was in the lead fight for the first half of the race, for a mistake through the 9-10 chicane, threw him out of contention, and penalty just added fuel to the fire and the flames that were burning beneath him. Can he try and right the wrongs of 7 days ago here, though, with a superb drive to get himself a potential race victory at the expense of Diltenzio?
Started down in 6th, of course, and has managed to make his way through the pack. He was or at least one of the last drivers to make their pit stops, going 12 laps on a set of the medium compound of tyres. Has done equidistant so far on a set of the hard compound, and will take these shortly till race end, where we have just 4 laps to go. Next time we cross the line, we'll have 25, 26, 27 and 28 to go here in the Chinese Grand Prix. And Joris Crozen in a very strong position. They've just got to play the smart game, introducing Liam Stevens, get the better of Tycho Hardy in the distance, with Luca Rapasa wanting to try and do the same. The McLaren car tries to send it down the inside of the left-hander, likes to try and send it in all the difficult corners. Luca Rapasa not making life easy for him, as there's contact, as he tried the switchback, gets the switchback done. But again, Tycho Hardy will be in the wars for contact after parking that car on the apex, and Luca Rapasa once again deciding that McLaren is going through no matter what, and this could be the place lost immediately on the run down towards the hairpin, as it is side by side between the McLaren and the V-Cub. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Tycho Hardy tries it around the outside. Rapasa tries to hold the inside. Tony Hightaler's also there for company. Squashed right to the outside. Was Tycho Hardy? Through goes Hardy to hold on to 6th place on circuit, but Luca Rapasa is well and truly not done. Got a great exit out of the final corner, down towards the opening corner. Here comes Tony Hightaler, who thought about a move, but Luca Rapasa swoops it around the outside. Tycho Hardy can do nothing about it, even though there's a little bit of a switch there from Luca Rapasa. The tyre's not necessarily playing ball. Tycho Hardy demoted down to 7th, and the questions will be, how does he feel about that?
Eichler into the back of Hardy as well, rubbing his racing. The battle for 6th and 7th there is Liam Stevens through on Julian Klaffenborg. There's actually a mistake from Klaffenborg. Off the road is the second Haas car, and hands 4th place over to Stevens on a silver platter, a freebie for the Aston Martin. And now looking at a potential podium with the freshest tyres of anybody, Liam Stevens. Looking very strong in position number 4. Joris Crozen still 6/10 off the back of Diltenzio. Gal very much still in the fray as well. Klaffenborg is 2nd off the back of Stevens in the battle for 4th and 5th now after that trip off the road through 6. And Luca Rapasa and Tycho Hardy getting very well acquainted with each other after their battle last week. What ended up being 2nd place behind the race winner, the other Racing Bulls car of Sergio Sobrino. Tycho Hardy coming out on top on that occasion. At the moment, the shoe on the other foot, but still with a couple of laps to go at least.
Absolutely. 3 to go when we next cross the line for these drivers, and Joris Crozen still looking incredibly strong in the latter stages of this race. Diltenzio looks cool though. He's never looked very much under pressure from drivers trying to charge him down. He secured pole position, of course, and has held that for the majority of this race, albeit losing the lead for a couple of laps here, there and everywhere, as we did see Tamas Gal have a great run at the front of the pack for many laps, but did get it back when it mattered. And we enter onto the final 3 then, with Crozen in charge, trying to chase down our race leader, Evangelio Diltenzio, Tamas Gal, Liam Stevens, Julian Klaffenbach as your top 5, with Rapasa, Hardy, Hightaler, Murphy and Tulke up in your top 10.
Gal looks dead on his feet here. Liam Stevens jinking away behind the rear wing of the Cadillac car. Feels like only a matter of time before the Aston Martin pushes Gal out of the podium places. I think we'll be looking more in his mirrors than out of the halo, Tamas Gal, in this remaining 2.5 laps, because Liam Stevens all over the back of him at the moment with that significant tyre offset. Looks to the inside of turn number 9. The space didn't present itself. Can he get the run through 10 to set up the movement to 11? Wobble there from Tamas Gal. Bit of oversteer. Car unsettled as they head down the mini straight into 11. Gal hovering in the middle of the road, but he jumps out of the way with a double lockup. Hands it over to Liam Stevens, who for the second time in as many laps gets an absolute freebie, courtesy of a mistake from the driver in front.
It's not looking the way they'd like to see that have gone, and Tamas Gal, an easy mistake to make, but especially in these generation of cars, both front tyres locking up, and there's nothing you can really do about it unless you try and feather the brake to the best of your ability and try and save the car to the nth degree. Joris Crozen still up at the front and now within 2/10 off the back of Angelo Diltenzio. They've dropped Liam Stevens, not quite within that 1 second they need, whereas Tamas Gal, on the other hand, has been locked away and will not probably get the overtake mode on towards lap 27. 2 to go here then for the Chinese Grand Prix. Joris Crozen, the question will be, can they get it done, and when will they get it done?
Dortenzio, Crozen, Stevens. You feel are the three drives that'll be contending in the penultimate lap and onto the final lap as well. Tamas Gal looking like he's running on the rims of those hard compound tyres and fourth. Got absolutely nothing left in his Cadillac as he's just going nowhere but backwards, with Klaffenburg now onto the tail of the Cadillac, and Luca Rapassa, Tycho Hardy and Tony Heitler still very much looking to try and pick up the pieces in the closing stages. Ferrari versus Haas versus Aston Martin. Liam Stevens with the best tyres, but still with a little bit of work to do to get right up onto the tail of Joris Crozen, who looks pretty comfortable for the time being with his plan in second.
It's certainly looking that way, and of course, as they make their way through, we're reading in chat from Jonas Martins, who, first and foremost, fantastic to see you, and it's good to say hello. He's noticed that Joris Crozen's been incredibly quick, I believe, on the back straight. I believe that's the straight that they are referring to, but either way, Haskar has looked very quick in a straight line. A little bit of a wobble coming through the elongated right-hander, but it does open up the opportunity down towards the hairpin to try and regain some of that time. Keep an eye, though, on the split. About half a second between the two cars as they made their way out of the corners. Already gained 2.5, nearly 3 tenths, making their way down. Looked for a little bit more, tried to go side by side with Dortenzio in towards the hairpin. Couldn't quite make it work. Does go for the switchback. Does Crozen, tries it, but doesn't get the traction. And that was heartbreak for Crozen. Thought he could have had it on towards the final lap, and now Dortenzio will know his game plan heading into this final lap.
Under the cosh, big time. The Ferrari now having to move back over because Crozen all over the rear of the Scarlet Ferrari. Looking this way and that as Rapassa pushes the other Haas of Klaffenburg out of the top 5. Well, scratch that because they're still side by side through turn 1 in the snail section. Klaffenburg takes it back away from the Papaya McLaren with Tycho Hardy and Tony Heitler falling backwards. Pushed off the road there. Crozen looking for a gap that wasn't there. Slammed into the polystyrene straight mode barrier. Off the road and onto the grass, and Stevens late lunge down the inside of turn 6. Bit of bumping and grinding between the Haas and the Aston Martin, and Stevens into the back of him again on the run into turn 7, but can't force the issue yet.
Stevens technically has the best tyres out of all these drivers in this paddock by 1 lap compared to Crozen, by 3 laps compared to Dortenzio, sending it down the inside of the Haas car. They've got to be careful not to lose too much time to the Ferrari in front of them, and Stevens determined that if he can't win, neither can Crozen, because he's trying everything in his power to dethrone the Haas car. And through the elongated right-hander, it's going to be a straight sprint to the line now. But has Stevens done enough to disrupt Crozen's ability to chase down towards the hairpin? That will be the question that will be answered in the next few seconds.
I think Stevens thinking there, if he didn't go for it on Crozen, he had zero chance of winning the race. Over to the right-hand side, all the way to the extremities is Dortenzio. Doesn't cover the inside enough, though, because Crozen still finds the space. Watch for the cutback from Liam Stevens. 3 wide through the penultimate corner. There is the flash of Scarlet. Through goes Dortenzio in a bare-knuckle brawl in China. Just about to the line. It'll be Angelo Dortenzio on debut in the VPS. Round at the back goes Klaffenburg out of the final corner. Battling away with Rapassa and Hardy. Heitler to the line in 7th. Liam Stevens was a 2nd, or a 10th, I should say, off the back of Joris Crozen as Klaffenburg reverses over the line in P10. Just holding on to that was Angelo Dortenzio. Had to work incredibly hard with the Haas and the Aston Martin chomping at the bit through the final couple of corners.
Massive wiggle from Conrad Bohm as well, coming up towards the line, and Thomas Kokone will be the last driver to cross the line, with Angelo Dortenzio holding off firm right at the end there, where it was 3 wide, heading in towards the final corner. And I think surely if you're Joris Crozen, you're asking questions of Liam Stevens there. Most notably, what were you doing there to try and disrupt that race?
Yeah, Crozen, I don't think will be particularly happy with Stevens. Stevens will be saying, well, I went for the move. I'm thinking about my own race there. Crozen will be saying, we had an opportunity, both of us, if we could stay closer to the back of Dortenzio on the run into that 11-12 chicane. Your awards, by the way: race winner Dortenzio, fastest lap for Stack Collect, driver of the day Rapassa, Varza with most overtakes, and Joe Murphy, cleanest driver. But a grandstand finish with Dortenzio just holding off the attacks from the Haas and the Aston Martin of Crozen and from Stevens. Gal in P4 didn't have the pace in the closing stage. Rapassa, I think, made contact with Klaffenburg through the final corner. Tycho Hardy, Heitler, Murphy, Tulki and Klaffenburg. Largo, Bison, Santana, Varzo, and Konstos, your top 10. Konstos with 20 seconds worth of penalties. Stacklet fastest lap, but doesn't pick up a point inside the top 15. Ahead of Bowman, Kokeni, and the 4 retirees of Roberts, Paps, Alves, and Presican to complete our 22 runners. That was fun, wasn't it?
That was. I'll be honest, China gave us a great race. I wasn't expecting it to be that good, but it was a fantastic race. Most notably as we got towards the end there and the drivers started to scrap it out a little bit. But nonetheless, I'm very impressed with the Chinese Grand Prix, and I don't say that very often.
Would have thunk it. Really interesting battle there. Could have been 4 drivers in it, maybe more, but Tamas Gal just ran out of tyres, basically, by the end of that race. Didn't have the pace to keep up with Dortenzio. Remember, they pitted on the same lap. So Tamas Gal in the Cadillac, unable just to cling on, coming home in 4th in the end. But it is Dortenzio, didn't appear last week in Australia, jumps in, takes pole position, and takes the race victory. Easy game, this quite clearly.
Happy days, and one that I think they'll remember for a few times. And lots of chopping and changing up and down the field. I think the biggest winner, of course, Luca Rapassa, got a given driver of the day, finished up from 11th place, finished in 5th. So some good results going home to McLaren, albeit probably would have been hoping it was a little bit more should Tudor not have retired early doors. And there was a little bit of verbal back and forth, verbal tennis between Nelson Alves and Tudor Prescan in the driver's chat early doors. So not necessarily how they would have liked to see that go for Team McLaren.
No, and I don't think Luca Rapassa making too many friends throughout that race either, with some of the manoeuvres that he was pulling off, going for those aggressive dive bombs, shall we say again. Really good strategy as well from Joris Krozen and Liam Stevens. One more lap, and I think both of them definitely would have managed to have Angelo Dortenzio there, who was clinging on a little bit in the latter stages. Significant tyre offset, almost with the overcut, bringing them from sort of middling in the pack. Joris Krozen started from P6, I think it was. Liam Stevens was up inside the top 4 for the majority of the opening stint, but elected to go for that overcut and get the tyre offset. Almost paid off for him.
It did, and that's really what could have paid off. No one who started on the hard combat tyres really came back into that race. We saw the only likes of Stephen Varso, who started on the hards, finishing 14th place, so it was always going to be that strategy that paid off, but the overcut really did pay off. 2 of the top 3 going later. But I think for Liam Stevens, if it had been 1 lap longer in terms of that Grand Prix, that would have seen him make his way through. But Tom, I'm quite disappointed. None of the drivers want to come talk to us.
We might be hearing from the race winner, Angelo Dortenzio, but he said give it 5 minutes because it's hot in his room. It's hot where we're going at the minute doing the commentary. So, I mean, game's a game.
I'll give him 60 seconds. How about that? Because I want to go cool down as well.
59, 58. I won't count all of it down, obviously. But what we do, or what we will do in the little interlude we have, is let's have a look at the calendar very quickly to see where we'll be heading, blasting around the globe over the next few weeks. To look forward to in 7 days' time, we head back to Europe, or we head to Europe, I should say, for the first time this season for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Just to preview that one, we've seen a race at Silverstone pretty recently, both of us that we commentated on, and it was a very interesting prospect with that battery management and the charging station, as Fernando Alonso called it, through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Yeah,
it's a really weird section of corners, because traditionally what is meant to be a section of corners that is flat out in Formula 1 now turns into this really kind of heavy Lyco zone, essentially, because they need to save some battery on the run up towards Stowe and then in towards Vale, so it loses some of its appeal. I don't want to say Silverstone's washed in F1 26 or the 2026 regulations, but especially with inside of the game, it's not going to be the one that I praise as highly as I did in previous generations. I love the circuit, it's still one of my favourites to go visit for other things. I think on this game, the Lyco just seems to have a null effect on the racing there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've both done races that have been really exciting, but also very battery heavy. And going into the latter stages proposes an interesting little proposition. But I'm delighted to say that it won't be 5 minutes for Angelo Dortenzio, because he has jumped into the interview waiting room, and we are going to bring our race winner in. Angelo, very well done. Looked like a hard-fought victory from your perspective.
Yeah, hello. Good evening, everyone. I mean, it was a chaotic race, let's say, because obviously with the new regulation and the battery to manage and everything. And I think during the second stint, we had 2-3 cars to overtake that didn't pit yet. So that probably helped Joris to catch me. I think he had 3-4 laps fresher than me, if I remember correctly. And that probably helped him a bit. And I was also very slow on the straight. I was very slow compared to Joris, so I kind of had to look back very often at the end of the straight every time. But yeah, at the end I managed to defend the position and finish P1. So yeah.
What is the mindset in those final couple of laps where you've got a tyre disadvantage compared to the drivers behind, and you've also got a battery disadvantage as well, because they've, of course, got the boost overtake mode? How do you try and approach those last couple of laps when you're massively under pressure?
To be fair, like around lap 20, I think, when Joris was P3, I thought it was going to be over. but then I think it took Joris like 2 laps to overtake Tamash, and that probably also helped me a bit. And a bit Joris destroyed his tires, but to be fair, in the last 3 laps when Joris was behind me, I was expecting him to just overtake me and then just go away. But then on the last lap, I think Liam also got in the fight, so I somehow got a gap for the last straight and then defended it well for the hairpin and last corner.
Let's talk about, obviously, pit strategy, because you were the only one in the top 3 that went slightly early compared to everybody else as well. Went only 9 laps on those mediums. Is it always going to be that strategy, going for the effective undercut on the rest of the field, where I think looking up and down the table, pretty much everybody went a little bit later, 10, 11, 12 in terms of laps for the first stints?
I mainly pitted early because I saw, I think it was Tony, Julian and Taiko that pitted the lap before me. So I kind of just wanted to keep the top 2 position for the final few laps as well. I kind of don't want to go there and do a lot of overtakes. I just want to chill and manage my race from the top of the field instead of being in the midfield.
And looking ahead to Silverstone next week, if you are going to be around for that one, what kind of challenge do you think from a driving perspective you guys are going to have to be working with?
Definitely the battery management, because we cannot really save. So yeah, it's going to be fun. But yeah, looking forward for it.
Well, thank you very much for having a chat with us, Angelo. Very well done as well on your victory, first appearance of the season, and 100% win record for yourself.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very, very much. As we will have, I believe, a chat with Luca Ripassa as well, who's going to jump in from P11 to P5. Luke, you had to get your elbows out quite a lot there to work your way through the field. Looked like an exciting one for you?
Well, not really, to be honest. There was some some people drive on an interesting way to avoid being overtaken, but yeah, there's nothing I can do about that.
How was the pace looking in qualifying? Because I imagine you would have expected to be slightly higher up than you were after getting knocked out in Q2. So did that change your approach at all heading into the race?
Well, I've been struggling with this qualifying the entire time. Respectively, I've never been this far off pace, but we know where it is now. Like I lost 70 in the hairpin, so it cost me Q3, but I wasn't even that disappointed with where I qualified, to be honest.
I've just got 2 questions for you very quickly. First and foremost, congratulations on a great drive through to P5. You said on Twitter earlier this afternoon that the track is buns here in Shanghai. That was the only way that you could describe it. Do you stand by that after such a great drive through?
In the quali, it's very, very much buns, but the race, it's fine. It's just quite difficult to overtake because everyone's on a lot of battery the entire time, with turn 1 being like you can regain like 70% in turn 1, 2, and then like 40% in end of sector, like start of sector 3. So it's quite difficult catching someone lacking because everyone can use the battery the entire straight.
And my second question as well is talking of the team's championship that we have here in the VPS, your teammate Tudor going out in the opening few laps, does that make a negative effect on the team, and how does that feel with your McLaren overall as a whole heading into the rest of the season?
To be honest, I'm just more focused on my own driving, to be honest. I'm just like I can't really do anything about what my teammate does, so I'm not really bothered about that. I'm just focused on my own pace and my own stuff to get good results and get some points for the championship.
A very decent haul of points that you picked up to add, of course, to the P3 from last week. And I think you might lead the championship. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but coming ahead of Taika Hardy, I think the pair of you are going to be pretty close. But well done today, Luca. Good drive to get yourself up from P11 into the top 5. And hopefully we'll see you next week at Silverstone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think that will just round out our set of interviews. It's interesting listening to people's opinions of China, isn't it? Because I think we know a couple of people that think China's absolutely the bee's knees. Yeah. They love China. Every time we go to China, they're absolutely cheering. And then we have the other end of the spectrum where everybody hates it.
I was always in that second camp of I didn't like the circuit when DRS was a thing, and obviously the battery was a lot more, I don't want to say meaningful, because I don't think it is unmeaningful for the 2026 season, but I think everyone knows what I mean from it. I think as we've headed into the 2026 regulations, the straight line mode gives more overtaking opportunities. It's not just that long back straight anymore. You can recharge the battery quite a lot more and a lot faster, so you can deploy in places that you traditionally wouldn't do because you'd have to save it all for that long straight. So, you know what? China's one of those circuits that has opened up the opportunity for China to be a good circuit.
And it's a circuit I think as well, ever since, I mean, I didn't like the game, but F1 24, China, I think just felt a little bit better when it came back onto the calendar with that style of handling. But alas, we will move away from China. Australia last week, China this week, and we move to a circuit as old as Formula One itself in 7 days' time. The British Grand Prix in Silverstone. 2 different winners, neither of them there for both races. That'd be interesting if we do see Sergio Sabrina return and Angelo Totenzio here next week as well. Before we head out, firstly, absolute pleasure to bring this series to you, as it has been for the few weeks we've done so far, the social races and round one. And thank you for spending your evening, your afternoon, your morning, or the early hours in the middle of the dark, whatever you're doing at 4 a.m. I don't know why you'd be watching this when you could be asleep, but we respect you nonetheless. And TK, as always, a pleasure to be alongside you. Where can people find you on an internet to see what you're up to?
First and foremost, pleasure is absolutely all mine, and Tom Square invading commentary boxes left, right and centre. But if you want to check me out, They Call Me TK on pretty much every single social media. How about yourself, Tom?
If you're interested in what I'm doing, Wilco.com's on Instagram and TikTok, an app in TikTok that I hate and never use. But glossing over that one, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll be back in 7 days' time for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, where the championship battle might just be hotting up. We're still yet to see who's really going to take a stranglehold on this title fight. Maybe we'll see some perennial contenders start to rise to the top in a week's time. Until then, we'll see you very soon.